Chapter 666. In fact, the reason why Yi Chen wanted to plunder the Li clan's unopened secret realm, to the extent that he was determined to obtain it, was because of chance. That's right, it was chance. To be precise, when Yi Chen heard about the Li clan's secret realm that had yet to be opened, his Violet Palace nascent divinity suddenly sensed an indescribable, illusory trajectory of fate. It was very mysterious and abstruse, as if it had already existed in the unseen world. If it was missed, many unexpected changes would occur. If it were someone else, perhaps they would be stupefied by this illusory feeling, or even directly ignore it. But Yi Chen wouldn't. After his rebirth, Yi Chen was very clear about what that extremely strange feeling in the unseen world was. That was a chance that belonged to Yi Chen. It was just like in the untainted world, when the innate spiritual treasure was born, all the almighty beings who were fated with it sensed it and then gathered together. At this very moment, Yi Chen also had this feeling. To be precise, for the first time, Yi Chen sensed a chance that belonged to him. Although Yi Chen didn't know why a god martial realm warrior could sense a chance, this didn't hinder Yi Chen's decision. To be precise, no matter what, Yi Chen would go to the Li clan's location in the real world, and then try to break into that unopened secret realm. As soon as Yi Chen's extremely cold words fell, the Li clan head's expression suddenly changed. His heart, which had been forcibly stabilized, also began to beat violently uncontrollably at this moment. At this moment, the extremely experienced Li clan head suddenly understood one thing. Yi Chen must have heard everything he said just now. Otherwise, Yi Chen wouldn't have asked about the Li clan's location in the real world. As for Yi Chen's purpose, it was already very obvious. He wanted to enter the Li clan's unopened secret realm. Just as the Li clan head's thoughts were in turmoil, the middle-aged man looked at Yi Chen with a pale face and said, "Brother Yi Chen, I'm sorry. Yi Chen, I can tell you the location of the Li clan in the real world, but you have to let my son go. If you must kill to relieve the hatred in your heart, then just kill me and let the others go. If you don't remove the roots when you cut the weeds, they will grow again when the spring breeze blows. Do you really need me to teach you such a simple principle?" Yi Chen laughed coldly when he heard this. Then, he looked at the middle-aged man and said, "To Yi Chen, enemies were meant to be killed. No matter what conditions or threats they made, Yi Chen would not care. To be precise, even if Yi Chen wanted something, he would at most force it out of it. If the other party refused to say anything, then Yi Chen would only make one choice, which was to kill him directly and not give the enemy even the slightest chance." Of course, Yi Chen would definitely explore the Li clan's unopened secret realm. However, this had nothing to do with whether the Li clan revealed their location in the real world or not. If they said it, Yi Chen would directly find it. If they didn't say anything, Yi Chen would at most continue to search for the mysterious forces, then kill them one by one and interrogate them. In the end, Yi Chen would still find the Li clan's location and explore the secret realm that gave Yi Chen the feeling of an opportunity. When the middle-aged man who was under Yi Chen's control heard this, his face immediately turned pale. At this moment, the complexion of the Li clan's patriarch beside the middle-aged man also became incomparably pale. Like the middle-aged man, he also understood Yi Chen's way of doing things and also understood Yi Chen's personality. To be precise, they saw one thing. Yi Chen would definitely kill the Li clan. No matter whether he said it or not, this ending was already completely decided. Thinking of this, an uncontrollable unwillingness suddenly rose in the Li clan head's heart. Yes, the Li clan head was very unresigned. The Li clan had clearly obtained an enormous opportunity before the meteor fell. As long as they followed the prescribed order, the Li clan would have an abnormally vast future. And he, as the clan head, would certainly have the hope of longevity and living forever. However, his greed broke out. He wanted to obtain everything that Yi Chen had. Who would have thought that it was his greed that directly brought a monstrous disaster to the Li clan and himself. Regret? A little, but more than that, he was unwilling to accept it. The Li clan head was unwilling to fail like this, and even more unwilling to let the Li clan's opportunity be snatched away by Yi Chen. However, he was powerless to resist, powerless to struggle. Not to mention moving, he couldn't even go offline. Just as the middle-aged man and the Li clan head's faces turned deathly pale, a layer of cold sweat involuntarily appeared on the young man's forehead. In the next second, the young man loudly shouted at Yi Chen. "If you want to know our location in the real world, you must enter my Li clan's secret realm. If you kill any one of us, then don't even think about knowing where the Li clan's secret realm is." "Very good." Hearing this, Yi Chen chuckled and nodded. After he finished speaking, he slashed out with the Xianyuan sword in his right hand. With a wung sound, an azure sword aura instantly appeared and rapidly slashed at the young man, arriving in the blink of an eye. After a slash sound, the young man's body was cut into two halves from head to toe. A crash sound was heard. The bits and pieces in the young man's stomach flowed to the ground. Blood mixed with a somewhat nauseating stench instantly rose up. At this moment a bang sound was heard. The two halves of the young man's corpse that had just been cut into two exploded in an instant. The sky was filled with pieces of flesh mixed with fur and bone, directly splashing onto the Li clan head, the middle-aged man, and the gray-haired old man. And at this moment, the young man's soul was also directly annihilated as soon as it appeared. "Yi Chen, you'll die a horrible death." Seeing this, the middle-aged man's eyes were immediately incomparably red from the provocation. He then loudly roared at Yi Chen. Hearing this, Yi Chen coldly smiled and unhesitatingly slashed out with the Xianyuan sword in his right hand. After the sword aura passed, the middle-aged man followed in the footsteps of the young man. Pieces of flesh and blood filled the sky and exploded everywhere. Yi Chen glanced at the pieces of flesh and blood on the ground, then looked at the Li clan head and said, "Tell me. I'll give you a quick death. Otherwise, I'll let you personally experience what it means to live a life worse than death." Hearing this, the Li clan head, whose expression kept changing back and forth, suddenly came back to his senses. He then looked at Yi Chen with a calm expression and asked, "Yi Chen, you've already killed one of my sons and one of my grandsons. Do you still want to continue killing? Why not?" Hearing this, Yi Chen couldn't help but raise his eyebrows and ask. Hearing this, the Li clan head suddenly smiled and said, "The Li clan head still has a secret realm. The Li clan indeed still has a secret realm that has yet to be opened. However, the only person who knows the location of this secret realm is me." Chapter 667. When Yi Chen heard the Li clan leader's extremely childish words, he couldn't help but raise his eyebrows and then asked, "Is that so? You don't believe me? Even if I tell you the exact location of the Li clan in the real world, you still won't be able to find that secret realm that hasn't been opened yet." When the Li clan leader heard this, he immediately frowned and said, Clearly, the Li clan leader's attitude of not caring about Yi Chen at all made him somewhat worried, or even frightened. Otherwise, he wouldn't have suddenly frowned. When Yi Chen heard this, he glanced at the Li clan leader and then asked, "Where is the Li clan? Yi Chen, you really won't consider reconciliation?" When the Li clan leader heard this, his face immediately sank and then he asked. When Yi Chen heard this, he looked at the Li clan leader with disdain. Just as he was about to speak, he suddenly saw the Li clan leader's lips move slightly. In that instant, a word directly appeared in Yi Chen's mind: lip reading. This was the game world. Players could communicate remotely through friends, but no matter what was said, it had to be said personally before it could be sent out. There weren't any keyboards here for people to type. It was also because of this restriction that many times, when factions fought with each other, after capturing enemies or spies, they would directly seal their mouths to prevent them from transmitting any information. This method of treating captives was common among all player factions. However, very quickly, some factions discovered that they had captured their enemies and sealed their mouth. However, the secret of their side was still leaked. After being completely puzzled, there was a detailed investigation, and the final result directly pointed to lip reading. To be more precise, if the captured enemy knew how to lip read, then it was useless even if their mouths were sealed. They could completely use lip reading to tell their friends everything they wanted to say. And the Li clan leader, who was being controlled by Yi Chen, was clearly someone who knew how to lip read. As for what he was trying to do by lip reading, how could Yi Chen not see through it? Thinking of this, Yi Chen coldly smiled, and then he shouted, "You want to send a message and have your clansmen log off? In your dreams." As soon as Yi Chen finished speaking, a violent pressure suddenly erupted from Yi Chen's body, instantly enveloping Runan County City. In the next second, all the players in the entire city, without exception, were all frozen in place. Yi Chen knew that the players in this house were all members of the Li clan, but Yi Chen didn't know if there were any Li clan members in Runan County City. Yi Chen didn't want to be careless and let the members of the Li family go just because he wasn't sure. After all, Yi Chen had come here to eradicate the entire Li clan. After Yi Chen's SS heard, and then he said to Yi Yes. Li S Yizes S Teet S's Yes to T, Teet, Teetes it's the S if you don't believe me, you can ask her if she can log off. When Yi Chen heard this, he disdainfully curled his lips, and then he said. Hearing this, the Li clan leader's expression suddenly changed. Without thinking, he once again used lip reading. However, in less than 2 seconds, the Li clan leader's face suddenly became incomparably pale. Seeing this, Yi Chen couldn't help but raise his eyebrows, and then he moved his mind. In the next second, the space in front of Yi Chen suddenly distorted. Looking at the distorted space, Yi Chen's left hand directly reached in, and then he made a grabbing motion. When Yi Chen's left hand withdrew from the distorted space, a 16-year-old girl suddenly appeared in the hall. Seeing the sudden appearance of the girl, the Li clan leader was instantly enraged, and then he roared at Yi Chen. Yi Chen, are you still a man? Why won't you even let a child off? Child. Hearing this, Yi Chen disdainfully curled his lips, then he looked at the 16-year-old girl and asked, Tell me the location of the Li clan in the real world, and I'll give you a quick death, or else. When Yi Chen said this, he suddenly smiled, and then he revealed a mouthful of white teeth. I don't know. I really don't know. When the girl saw Yi Chen's mouthful of white teeth, she suddenly shivered, and then she said with incomparable fear. When Yi Chen heard this, he immediately frowned, and then he said in a deep voice, Although I don't know what you ate to make you 16 years old, no matter how you change, you can't hide the rotten aura that your soul is emitting. Do you still plan on continuing to pretend? Don't say it. Yi Chen won't let us off at all. When the Li clan leader heard this, he was immediately stunned. After coming back to his senses, he hurriedly shouted at the girl. When Yi Chen heard this, the Xianyuan sword in his right hand slashed at the Li clan leader without hesitation. Slash. A sound was heard. The Li clan leader was directly split into two by the azure sword aura, and then with a bang, he exploded into pieces. The smell of blood in the hall instantly became even stronger. Yi Chen looked at the Li clan leader's corpse that had exploded all over the floor and curled his lips in disdain. Then he looked at the girl and asked, Are you going to speak or not? When the girl who was blankly looking at the Li clan leader's corpse that had exploded all over the floor heard this, she immediately came back to her senses. Then she fiercely turned her head, looked at Yi Chen, and sternly shouted, In your dreams. You bastard, you killed my son and grandson, you'll die a horrible death. Die. When Yi Chen heard this, he coldly smiled, and then he waved his sword. In an instant, this girl, who looked like a girl, but was actually the Li clan leader's wife, was killed with one strike. In the next second, Yi Chen directly looked at the gray-haired old man, and said indifferently, Do you know where the Li clan is in the real world? If you know, you might as well say it, and I'll give you a quick death. I'm already very old, and I don't have many years left to live. If you want to make a move, then do it." After hearing Yi Chen's words, the gray-haired old man faintly smiled, and then he opened his mouth to speak. When Yi Chen heard this, he looked at the gray-haired old man in astonishment, and then he opened his mouth to speak. "I didn't expect that I would actually meet a person who takes life and death lightly. You've surprised me." When the gray-haired old man heard this, he very calmly looked at Yi Chen, and then he opened his mouth to speak. "Many thanks for you of Beech's praise, Lord Yu of Beech." Although this old man knows that pleading for leniency is useless, this old man still wants to plead for leniency from Lord Yu of Beech, and let the other members of the Li clan go. If Yu of Beech is willing to stop here, the Li clan will certainly be deeply grateful to Lord Yu of Beech, and will even raise the entire clan to rely on Lord Yu of Beech. Everything of the Li clan will also belong to Lord Yu of Beech. When Yi Chen heard this, he couldn't help but raise his eyebrows, and then he opened his mouth to speak. "Looks like you're still a person with a story, otherwise you wouldn't be so loyal. However, not only did you stand in the wrong position, you also said the wrong thing." Chapter 668. Yi Chen didn't care whether the gray-haired old man was truly indifferent to life and death. Yi Chen also didn't care whether he was truly loyal to the Li clan. To Yi Chen, this gray-haired old man was also an enemy. Moreover, he was an enemy who could remain calm even if Mount Tai was pressing down on him. Otherwise, he wouldn't have calmly told Yi Chen that the Li clan would pledge allegiance to Yi Chen. Unfortunately, the gray-haired old man still didn't know Yi Chen well. Otherwise, he definitely wouldn't have mentioned the matter of the Li clan pledging allegiance. To be precise, Yi Chen wouldn't accept people from the real world as his subordinates at all. Especially a special force like the Li clan. No matter how many there were, no matter how extravagant their claims were, Yi Chen wouldn't accept them. If Yi Chen made an exception and accepted them, then it wouldn't be long before one wave of schemes against Yi Chen would appear. Yi Chen was very sure of this. There was no other way. This was the reality of human society after the meteor fell. It was very helpless and very sad. There was no trust between people, no morality, only naked conspiracies and the law of the jungle where the strong preyed on the weak. Of course, Yi Chen didn't care about this, because Yi Chen, who had been reborn, had seen too many conspiracies, too many betrayals, and too many schemes. Of course, most of all, it was the bloody law of the jungle. Whether it was humans, demons, or wizards, they were all within the law of the jungle. If they wanted to transcend, they had to have strength. Strength strong enough to make all living beings tremble and even fear. This was the reality. Whether it was in his previous life or in this life, it was all so. Thinking of this, Yi Chen's mind moved, and the space in front of him instantly distorted. In the next second, Yi Chen's left hand reached into the distorted space and grabbed casually. Then, he saw a young man who clearly had the temperament of a servant being instantly grabbed by Yi Chen. Yi Chen! Yi Chen! The moment the young man who was suddenly dragged into the hall saw Yi Chen, his face immediately turned pale, and he stammered at Yi Chen. Yi Chen glanced at the young man and pointed his Xian Yuan sword at him. Then, he looked at the gray-haired old man and asked, "What are you doing? Are you going to tell me or not?" The young man was naturally the descendant of the gray-haired old man. Otherwise, Yi Chen would not have specially captured him. As for Yi Chen being able to capture the gray-haired elder's descendants so accurately, the reason was actually very simple. It should be known that before Yi Chen officially appeared in the hall, he had already heard the conversation between the Li clan leader and his son and grandson. And in their conversation, they had mentioned De Chang. Although the Li clan leader did not say it explicitly, it was easy to determine that this De Chang must be the descendant of the gray-haired old man. Otherwise, the Li clan leader would not have specially mentioned his name. When the young man heard this, he could not help but look sideways. When he saw the gray-haired old man, he directly shouted without thinking, "Dad, tell me. Dad, say it quickly. What does Boss Yi Chen want to know? Say it quickly." After hearing the young man's words, the gray-haired old man, who was originally quite calm, let out a long sigh and then fell silent. After 10 minutes, the gray-haired old man looked at Yi Chen and said, "The Li clan leader has helped me a lot. I am indebted to the Li family. Without them, I would have died 30 years ago." When Yi Chen heard this, he immediately frowned. Just when Yi Chen thought that the old man was determined to die, the gray-haired old man suddenly continued, "For so many years, I have done many, many things for the Li clan. It is enough to repay the Li clan's kindness to me. Why am I still so loyal to the Li clan? Do you know, Lord Yu of Beach?" When Yi Chen heard this, he sized up the gray-haired old man and said, "I am not interested in your story. If you want to tell me the location of the Li clan in the real world, then tell me directly. If you don't, then I will send you to reunite in the underworld." When the gray-haired old man heard this, he sighed and said, "It is in Shanghai. As for the Li clan's secret realm that has yet to be opened, it is under the fake mountain. There is a layer of forbidden magic stone there that prevents divine sense from entering. As long as it is opened, a passage will appear. When you enter, you will see the entrance to the secret realm." Yi Chen, whose divine sense had locked onto the gray-haired old man, nodded in satisfaction after confirming that the gray-haired old man was not lying. "I was wondering why the Li clan leader was so confident. He even said that only a few people knew the location of the secret realm. Without them, I could forget about finding it. So it was because of the forbidden magic stone. The forbidden magic stone was a special material. Its function was to isolate all energy. At first glance, it looked very magical and powerful. In fact, the forbidden magic stone was of little value. After all, once Yi Chen arrived at the location of the Li clan in the real world, he would definitely release his divine sense to explore the location of the secret realm. If there was no forbidden magic stone blocking outside the secret realm, Yi Chen would directly lock onto the secret realm. And with the forbidden magic stone, there was actually no difference, because where Yi Chen's divine sense could not reach, there would definitely be abnormalities. After that, Yi Chen would definitely go over to investigate carefully. In the end, he would still discover the location of the secret realm. He really didn't know what the Li clan leader was thinking. He thought that a layer of forbidden magic stone was a treasure. How ignorant, however, that old man was also quite confident. Unfortunately, his steward was obviously not a good person. Otherwise, how would he know the location of the secret realm? Just as Yi Chen thought of this, the gray-haired old man, who had been frozen in place by Yi Chen, suddenly opened his mouth and asked, "Lord Yu of Beach, can I personally make a move against the Li clan?" When Yi Chen heard this, he glanced at the gray-haired old man and slashed out with the Xianyuan sword in his right hand without hesitation. In the next second, a slash sound was heard. The gray-haired old man's head was instantly sliced in half by the cyan sword aura. After a bang, the gray-haired old man's body instantly exploded into pieces that filled the sky. Yi Chen glanced at the gray-haired old man's body that had exploded into pieces and curled his lips in disdain. The gray-haired old man waffled back and forth. One moment, he said that the Li clan had done him a favor. The next moment, he said that he had long since repaid the Li clan's favor. The next moment, he deliberately mystified and asked Yi Chen if he knew why he was so loyal. In the end, the gray-haired old man even asked for Yi Chen's opinion on whether he could personally kill a member of the Li clan. His goal was actually to draw a clear line with the Li clan and then save his life. Yi Chen saw this point very clearly and naturally had no interest in listening to the gray-haired old man. To Yi Chen, whatever the gray-haired old man said was useless. There was only one ending for him: death. Boss. Yi Chen, spare me, spare me. When the young man in Yi Chen's grasp saw the gray-haired old man explode into pieces that filled the sky, His eyes abruptly constricted. He then shouted at Yi Chen with incomparable terror. When Yi Chen heard this, he sneered, then looked at the young man and asked, "Regarding the Li clan, do you have anything to add? For example, are they all in this city right now? How many people are there in the clan, and how many people are there outside? Also, is the Li clan the only one who schemed against me this time? Are there any other powers involved? In other cities, there are still members of the Li clan. Limitless Palace and 7-Star Tower also schemed against boss Yi Chen." When the young man heard this, he suddenly shivered and stammered. When Yi Chen heard this, he nodded and then waved his sword, directly obliterating the young man. In the next second, Yi Chen's feet moved and he directly left the hall. After Yi Chen killed everyone in this large courtyard with 3 entrances and 3 exits, he directly went offline. There were still members of the Li clan in other cities. As for where, Yi Chen was not in the mood to ask. If he wanted to completely eradicate the Li clan that schemed against him, it was more direct and straightforward to directly go to the Li clan in the real world. Chapter 669. In the real world, Reincarnation City, City Lord's Mansion Hall. Yi Chen suddenly opened his eyes in the diamond-level game cabin. He then opened the door of the game cabin and stood up. At this moment, Yanhu, Yi Lin, the treasure-hunting fish, Little Yu, the golden-furred monkey, and the tortoise with the Xuanwu bloodline, who were cultivating in the hall, all opened their eyes and looked at Yi Chen. In the next second, all the beasts stood up and called out to Yi Chen, "Big brother, master." When Yi Chen heard this, he nodded with a smile and said, "That's right. You guys continue cultivating. I still have something to do." "Yes, big brother, master." The flaming tiger Yi Lin, treasure-hunting fish Yi Xiao Yu, the golden monkey, and the big tortoise hurriedly nodded in response. When Yi Chen heard this, he immediately left the diamond-ranked gaming cabin. With a thought, he instantly released his divine sense. Yi Chen released his divine sense to search for the location of the Li clan in Shanghai that the gray-haired old man had mentioned. A few seconds later, Yi Chen raised his eyebrows and the space in front of him instantly distorted with a thought. Seeing this, Yi Chen took a step into the distorted space and disappeared. In a large town called Songyue Town in Shanghai, a group of men wearing mysterious grade suits looked enviously in the direction of the mayor's mansion as they discussed the matter. "Big brother, when will master allow us to become inner sect disciples?" A fat man glanced at the mayor's mansion and then looked at the young man lying on the recliner and asked. The young man lying on the recliner looked at the fat man and then opened his mouth to eat the watermelon handed to him by a young woman beside him. After chewing a few times and swallowing, he said, "Why are you in such a hurry?" "What's the hurry? In another day and a half, the protective shield will disappear. When that time comes, we'll be able to upgrade this place to a city and become inner disciples." "Big brother, why did I hear those inner sect disciples say that even if we become inner sect disciples, we won't be able to go to the sect's holy land?" When the fatty heard this, he immediately asked with a worried face. Hearing this, the young man frowned, then looked at the fat man and asked, "What's the matter? Fatty, did you really hear what they said?" "Big brother, even if I lie to anyone, I wouldn't dare to lie to you. I really heard it. That day when I was fetching the bathwater for them, I secretly heard it," Fatty hurriedly explained when he saw the young man frown. When the young man heard this, his face darkened. The people around the young man looked at each other. Their faces changed from fawning and envy to gloomy. Clearly, the news that the fatty spoke of was not good news. "All right, don't think about it anymore. We have to believe in Master. Since he said that we can go to the Holy Land after becoming inner sect disciples, we will definitely be able to go." After regaining his senses, the young man suddenly smiled and clapped his hands. "Sigh, it would be great if it's really like what boss said. If we go to that place too, our strength will definitely increase rapidly." Hearing this, the fatty sighed and said. When the young man heard this, He glared at the fatty and said in a deep voice, "Fatty, don't try to be clever. Remember, this world is not the same as before. If you want to survive in this world, you either have strength or be obedient and be a grandson. Don't think that we were just messing around in the past. We can just casually use some small tricks and act ruthlessly to take this place." When the young man said this, he glanced at the mayor's mansion with some fear, then said in a deep voice, "If I'm not wrong, our master, that is, the younger brother of the Lee clan's clan leader, has already become a Saint General." "Big brother, is what you said true? Didn't he just become an Emperor General?" When the fatty heard this, he was immediately shocked. He then looked at the young man and asked. The people around the young man also revealed shocked expressions at this moment. They all looked at the young man with faces full of shock. The young man glanced at the underlings who had followed him before the meteor fell, then nodded heavily and said, "You're right. You didn't hear wrong. Although I don't know how he could advance so quickly, I have to tell you one thing. The currently family is even more powerful than before. So, all of you better put away your thoughts. For the time being, we can't act blindly without thinking. But big brother, the longer we delay, the more disadvantageous it will be for us. You have to know that the Lee clan controls that secret realm. The longer we delay, the greater the gap between us and the Lee clan. In the end, we can only be underlings and work for the Lee clan." The fatty hurriedly said when he heard this. At this moment, the space around the young man suddenly distorted. In the next second, a handsome young man who emitted a domineering aura directly walked out of the distorted space. At this moment, one of the young man's underlings saw Yi Chun suddenly appear. After being stunned for a moment, he shouted in surprise, "Who are you?" Following the young man's underling's cry of surprise, everyone present looked at Yi Chun in unison. In the next second, a stuttering cry of surprise suddenly rang out. "Yi Chun! He's Yi Chun!" Following this stuttering cry, the young man and his former underlings all shivered at the same time. A person's name was like a tree's shadow. Yi Chun's sudden arrival had clearly provoked the young man and his underlings quite a bit. Otherwise, they wouldn't be like this. Yi Chun glanced at the young man and his underlings, then opened his mouth and asked, "This is the Lee clan's lair?" When the young man heard Yi Chun's question, his heart couldn't help but thump. After doing his best to steady his wildly beating heart, the young man carefully said, "Yes, yes. Lord Yu of Beech, very good." When Yi Chun heard this, he nodded in satisfaction. Then, with a wave of his right hand, the Xianyuan sword instantly appeared in Yi Chun's right hand. Then, it was grasped by Yi Chun. "Lord Yu of Beech, we didn't offend you." When the young man saw this, his body couldn't help but tremble, and then he said with incomparable horror. When the fatty heard this, he hurriedly nodded vigorously, and then said with a pale face, "Yes, Lord Yu of Beech, we can swear that we really didn't want to be your enemy, and we didn't do anything to scheme against you." Yi Chun's actions didn't seem like he was here to be a guest. How could the young man and his underlings not be afraid? When Yi Chun heard this, he glanced at the young man and his underlings, and then asked, "Who knows about the Demon Slayer sword array?" When Yi Chun's words fell, the young man and his underlings were all stunned, and then their expressions suddenly changed. When Yi Chun saw this, his eyebrows couldn't help but raise, and then he said, "I'll send you on your way." After Yi Chun finished speaking, his feet moved, and then he rushed towards the young man and his underlings. At the same time, the Xianyuan sword in Yi Chun's right hand was simple and crude, slashing left and right. In the blink of an eye, the young man and his underlings were cut into pieces by Yi Chun, and then died on the spot. Yi Chun was tyrannical, ruthless, and had killed countless people, but Yi Chun would never kill indiscriminately. To be precise, the people who were killed by Yi Chun, without exception, were all people who schemed against Yi Chun or directly attacked Yi Chun. Although the young man and his underlings weren't good people, as long as they weren't hostile to Yi Chun and didn't scheme against Yi Chun, Yi Chen naturally couldn't be bothered with them. Unfortunately, these people knew about the Demon Slayer sword array, and this alone was enough for Yi Chen to make a move. Chapter 670. Looking at the broken limbs on the ground, Yi Chen's right hand shook. With a buzzing sound, the blood hanging on the Xianyuan sword was instantly sent flying and fell to the ground. At this moment, a loud shout suddenly sounded. "How dare you! How dare you come to my Dark Moon town and behave so atrociously?" Hearing this, Yi Chen coldly smiled. Then, he raised his sword and walked in the direction of the voice. After a few steps, Yi Chen arrived in front of a group of players wearing heaven tier equipment. Without saying a word, he swung his sword and slashed. That was called straightforward and domineering. After dozens of slashes, the group of people who had just recognized Yi Chen were killed on the spot by Yi Chen. It was unknown whether they were members of the Li family or the Li family's so-called inner disciples. A light breeze blew past, and the smell of blood filled the air. At this moment, a large group of Li family's subordinates ran over. "Quick! Quick! Don't let him escape!" After a loud shout, a group of players holding Earth tier equipment appeared in Yi Chen's line of sight. Seeing this, Yi Chen frowned. In the next second, Yi Chen's mind moved, and he released his divine sense and enveloped the entire Dark Moon town. At this moment, the large group of players holding Earth tier equipment stopped at the same time. Then, they all widened their eyes. "Yi Chen! It's Yi Chen!" Dozens of exclamations sounded. Yi Chen looked at the players who suddenly stopped and pointed his left hand in the air. Then, he shouted in a deep voice, "Lightning strike!" Just as Yi Chen finished speaking, the sound of thunder shook the heavens and earth. Kaboom! In the next second, hundreds of thousands of blue lightning bolts as thick as an arm appeared out of thin air and covered the entire Dark Moon town. In an instant, the entire Dark Moon town turned into a sea of lightning. A violent and destructive aura accompanied the dancing lightning, surging endlessly. Boom! 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 Intense explosions followed closely behind. Without exception, all of the players on the streets of Dark Moon Town and on the city walls had been turned into charcoal by the violent lightning. At that moment, all the buildings in Dark Moon Town were destroyed by the violent lightning. The people in the buildings were killed on the spot by the lightning. After several breaths of time, the thunder dispersed. The originally orderly Blue Moon Town had been turned into ruins. No one howled or cried. All that was left was a charred gas that constantly rose up and flames that burned more and more fiercely. Looking at the charred corpses on the ground, Yi Chen could not help but raise his eyebrows. It seemed that the might of the Divine Night Imperial Lightning Technique had given him a lot more hints. Not bad, not bad. Thinking of this, Yi Chen nodded in satisfaction. He then rose into the air and flew towards the mayor's mansion. Yi Chen had used his ultimate move to kill all of them to save time. Otherwise, it would be too much of a waste of time to kill them in batches. As for how many people he killed and how miserable they were, Yi Chen did not care at all. After all, the people in Dark Moon Town were all clansmen of the Li clan, distant relatives or subordinate. It was impossible for Yi Chen to be merciful just because there were so many of them. It was even more impossible for him to be merciful just because they were unable to resist. To Yi Chen, the people here were all enemies. If they were enemies, Yi Chen would only choose one method, and that was to kill without mercy. After several breaths of time, Yi Chen arrived in the air above the mayor's mansion. Yi Chen took a look at the mayor's mansion that had turned into ruins, then flew straight to the backyard. When Yi Chen saw the blue door of light in the backyard of the mayor's mansion, he directly landed and walked in. The blue door of light was the entrance to the secret realm. However, it was not the secret realm that the Li clan had yet to open. The reason Yi Chen directly entered this secret realm was because when he was teleported to Dark Moon Town, he heard from the young man and the fatty about the sacred land. At first glance, the sacred land was very grand. Unfortunately, the so-called sacred land was actually just a secret realm controlled by the Li clan. This was something that Yi Chen had already confirmed when he heard the young man and the fatty's conversation. Of course, this was not important. What was important was that there were definitely people in this so-called sacred land. Otherwise, that fatty would not be so eager to go to the sacred land and even wish that he could stay there forever. It was precisely because there were people in the sacred land that Yi Chen directly entered the sacred land. As for his goal, it was to kill everyone in this so-called sacred land. After all, besides entering the secret realm that had yet to be opened, Yi Chen came to Dark Moon Town to eradicate the entire Li clan. Therefore, it was impossible for Yi Chen to not care when he clearly knew that there were still people from the Li clan living in the secret realm. After a brief moment of dizziness, Yi Chen opened his eyes and stared blankly. F***CK. Isn't this a F***King weapon refining workshop? It was no wonder that Yi Chen thought this way. This secret realm controlled by the Li clan was very different from ordinary secret realms. There was earth-fire, weapon refining furnaces, and dozens of materials piled up into mountains. Thinking of this, Yi Chen's eyes lit up, and then he hurriedly looked at the dozens of mountain-like piles of materials. After a few seconds, Yi Chen's eyes suddenly opened wide. F***CK. There were so many immortal-grade materials. After Yi Chen's rebirth, he knew many secrets and recognized many things. Among the dozens of mountain-like piles of materials in this secret realm, apart from two that had not reached the immortal grade, the rest were all immortal-grade materials. Yi Chen had thought that the Li clan had good things, but he never thought that the Li clan's good things would actually be immortal-grade materials. No wonder the Li clan's overall strength increased so slowly. It turned out that they had obtained a huge amount of immortal-grade materials. Well, this time I'm lucky. Thinking of this, the corners of Yi Chen's mouth curled up, and then he continuously patted the void with his left hand. In the next second, dozens of mountains of immortal-grade materials were collected by Yi Chen one by one, and then they disappeared in the secret realm. After Yi Chen collected the last mountain of immortal-grade materials, the entire secret realm instantly became much more spacious. Glancing at the mountains of immortal-grade materials that were collected into the small world, Yi Chen's mood instantly became very carefree. F***CK. This unexpected harvest was really not small. Yi Chen needed a large amount of immortal-grade materials to build the reincarnation immortal city. Otherwise, Yi Chen would not be able to take all the people of the Great Han Empire into the reincarnation immortal city. However, it was harder than ascending to heaven to obtain immortal-grade materials in the game world. Yi Chen knew that apart from his reincarnation immortal city, the rest were on the Three Immortal Island. To be honest, Yi Chen was really not sure whether these were enough. After all, he had not started to build the reincarnation immortal city, and he had not found the Three Immortal Island. Everything was unknown. But now, Yi Chen could say with certainty that the expansion plan of the reincarnation immortal city was enough to be realized. Thinking of this, Yi Chen could not help but curl up the corners of his mouth. At this moment, a cold reprimand suddenly sounded. "Bastard, who are you? Why did you enter the sacred land without permission?" Chapter 671. When Yi Chen heard this, he immediately swung the Xianyuan sword in his right hand without hesitation. There was a buzzing sound. A beam of green sword chi appeared in an instant, and then rushed toward the man who had just shouted. It arrived in the blink of an eye. There was a slashing sound. The man who had just berated Yi Chen was instantly sliced in half by the green sword aura. A large amount of blood mixed with his internal organs and intestines flowed to the ground. Yi Chen sneered as he glanced at the man who had been slashed to death. He then moved his feet and instantly arrived beside the three gaming cabins. Gold-grade gaming cabins, bronze-grade gaming cabins, and iron-grade gaming cabins. He didn't expect the Li clan to have obtained 3 gaming cabins. It's a pity that I have the star bead that can bring 100% of the strength in the game world back to the real world. Moreover, the game has been open for a long time now. It's impossible to see Pangu splitting open the sky again. Thinking of this, Yi Chun swung the Xianyuan sword in his right hand 3 times towards the 3 gaming cabins without hesitation. After 3 slashing sounds, the 3 gaming cabins, along with the people in them, were instantly sliced in half. If anyone saw Yi Chun doing this, they would definitely be furious. Damn it, you don't need it, but we do. It doesn't matter how much money it costs. Damn it, these are gaming cabins that can bring more of the strength in the game world back to the real world. Yi Chun naturally knew this, but Yi Chun really didn't think of using the gaming cabins to exchange for anything with the players. After all, the players were Yi Chun's competitors. If Yi Chun sold the gaming cabins, it would indirectly help the players to rise. This was not a good thing for Yi Chun. Whether it was selfishness or self-interest, Yi Chun would never let others become stronger and close the gap between Yi Chun and himself. After glancing at the gaming cabins that had been sliced in half and completely destroyed, Yi Chun used his divine sense to envelop the entire arcane realm. After scanning a few times and confirming that no one was alive, Yi Chun left the arcane realm and walked straight to the broken rockery in the backyard of the mayor's residence in Songyue town. Below this should be the entrance to the arcane realm that had yet to be opened. Thinking of this, Yi Chun flicked the fingers of his left hand. Buzz, buzz, buzz. After 5 slashes, 5 space blades appeared out of thin air and slashed towards the ground where the rockery was located. In the next second, Yi Chun's left hand grabbed the air. A layer of soil that was at least 10 meters thick was instantly lifted into the air. Yi Chun tossed it casually and then looked over there. In the next second, a blue door of light with runes flowing around it instantly appeared before Yi Chun. When Yi Chun saw the runes flowing on the blue door, his eyes suddenly opened wide. 9 Dragons Seal. Could it be that there was a connate exquisite stone in this arcane realm, and it was a 9-orifice exquisite stone? The connate exquisite stone was a type of connate jade stone. It was born and nurtured by the heavens. It would grow every million years. It would not increase or decrease. It would take hundreds of millions of years to form one orifice. Once the 9 orifices were fully formed, it would have endless magical uses. Its function was to seize the fortune of heaven and earth, suppress the fate of heaven and earth, proclaim the majesty of the Emperor's Tao, and deter all the demons in the world. If the connate exquisite stone and the connate cardinal treasure were placed together, and they could only choose one, most people would choose the connate cardinal treasure. After all, no matter how gorgeous the connate exquisite stone was, it was not as practical as a connate cardinal treasure. However, it was a different story when it came to Yi Chun. That was because Yi Chun would choose the connate exquisite stone without hesitation. The reason was very simple. If Yi Chun wanted to build a dynasty of providence, he had to have 3 items: the Imperial Jade Seal, the Imperial Decree, and the Imperial Sword. Putting aside the Imperial Decree and the Imperial Sword for the time being, just the Imperial Jade Seal alone was enough. Without this, Yi Chun could build a dynasty, but he would not be able to advance the empire into a dynasty of providence. This was because the providence of a dynasty of providence had to be carried by something in order to be effective. To be precise, the Imperial Jade Seal was the vessel of providence, and the connate exquisite stone was the most perfect and top-notch material to forge the Imperial Jade Seal. If Yi Chun missed the connate exquisite stone, then the highest achievements of the dynasty of providence that belonged to Yi Chun in the future would definitely be fixed at a certain stage and would not be able to continue growing. Even if Yi Chun's empire could sweep through the myriad worlds, it would be useless. This was because the key to the dynasty of providence was the grade of the Imperial Jade Seal. Originally, Yi Chun wanted to use the Great Han Empire's Imperial Jade Seal when the time came. After all, the Imperial Jade Seal was passed down from the Preqin dynasty and was not an ordinary Imperial Jade Seal. It could be used as the imperial jade seal that carried the providence of the dynasty of Providence. Who would have thought that Yi Chen would actually see the seal of the 9 dragons here? Others might not know what the seal of the 9 dragons represented, but how could Yi Chen, who had been reborn, not know? This was a sealing technique that was automatically formed when the connate exquisite stone's 9 orifices were completed. His goal was to safely transform into human form. Damn it, there must be a 9 orifices exquisite stone in this mystic realm. I was wondering why my primordial spirit suddenly sensed the trajectory of fate when I heard them mention the unopened mystic realm in the Li family. Damn it, so my opportunity is actually this. At the thought of this, Yi Chen's eyes lit up. It was no wonder that Yi Chen was so excited. This was because the imperial jade seal, the key item of the dynasty of Providence, was too important. If Yi Chen directly obtained the 9 orifices exquisite stone and forged it into the imperial jade seal, then Yi Chen's dynasty of Providence would reach the peak in the future, and there would be no restrictions at all. Of course, the prerequisite was that Yi Chen had to have the strength. However, this was not important. What was important was that the 9 orifices exquisite stone, the top material for making the imperial jade seal, was simply too rare. Even in Yi Chen's previous life, the best imperial jade seal of the 8 great dynasties of Providence that made a name for themselves in the primordial world was only the 6 orifices exquisite stone. Thinking of this, Yi Chen's mind moved, and 100 enlightenment stones instantly appeared in front of Yi Chen. Looking at the 100 enlightenment stones floating in front of him, Yi Chen chose to use them without hesitation. The system's notification sounded immediately. Ding! Congratulations to player Yi Chen for using Enlightenment Stones. Enlightenment mode activated. Duration, 100 minutes. As soon as the system's notification ended, Yi Chen entered the Enlightenment Doomsday without hesitation. Then, he began to comprehend the runes that were constantly flowing on the blue door of light at the entrance of the secret realm. If Yi Chen wanted to enter the secret realm and obtain the 9 orifices exquisite stone, he had to break the 9 dragons' seal attached to the entrance of the secret realm. And to break the 9 dragons' seal, he had to break the protective runes automatically generated by the 9 dragons' seal. And to break the runes, he had to master the knowledge of runes. Unfortunately, Yi Chen's knowledge in this aspect was close to 0. However, this was not a problem for Yi Chen. Because Yi Chen still had the Enlightenment Stones, he could enter the Enlightenment mode at any time. He could comprehend runes while breaking the protective runes generated by the 9 dragons' seal. Chapter 672. Time slowly ticked by. Under the support of the Tao comprehension mode, Yi Chen's understanding of the talisman went from initial ignorance to understanding. Then, it rapidly improved toward familiarity. 3 minutes later, the system notification sounded. Ding! Congratulations to player Yi Chen for comprehending the beginner-level innate rune technique. As soon as the system notification ended, Yi Chen, who was in the midst of comprehending the 9 dragon seal rune, was stunned. Damn it, innate rune technique. How could there be a difference between innate and acquired runes? Yi Chen had never studied runes in his previous life. Naturally, his understanding of runes was not that deep. However, Yi Chen was very clear about one thing. Regardless of whether it was a spell, a skill, or a skill, once there was a difference between innate and acquired runes, then the innate was definitely the strongest and would lead directly to the Great Tao. Even if this so-called leading directly to the Great Tao was just the tip of the iceberg, or even just the tip of the iceberg, it was still not something that the acquired runes could compare to. Not bad, not bad. This unexpected gain was not bad at all. Thinking of this, Yi Chen raised his eyebrows and continued to comprehend the defensive runes that the 9 dragon seal had automatically generated. Time passed slowly. 10 minutes later, the system notification sounded again. Ding! Congratulations to player Yi Chen for comprehending the intermediate level innate rune technique. 40 minutes later, the system notification sounded again. Ding! Congratulations to player Yi Chen for comprehending the advanced level innate rune technique. 80 minutes later, the system notification sounded for the 4th time. Ding! Congratulations to player Yi Chen for comprehending the super level innate rune technique. Ding! Congratulations to player Yi Chen for being the first to comprehend the innate rune technique to the super level. Special reward, skill grade +1. Ding! Congratulations to player Yi Chen for evolving the innate rune technique into the Chaos level exclusive skill, Chaos Rune Technique. Ding! As player Yi Chen has comprehended the Chaos level skill, Chaos Rune Technique, special title, Supreme Rune Technique. Skill can be imparted to others. After the series of system notifications ended, Yi Chen, who was in Dao Enlightenment mode, was stunned. Damn it! That works too. It was no wonder that Yi Chen was so surprised. After all, Yi Chen's original plan was to comprehend the runic arts and then break the 9 dragons' seal. But in the end, a huge surprise fell on Yi Chen's head. Yi Chen had actually grasped a primal chaos level cultivation method and primal chaos talisman. This wasn't some cabbage cultivation method that could be found anywhere. To be more precise, any chaos level cultivation method could be cultivated until one became a saint. Back when Yi Chen first entered the game, he had watched Pangu split open the heavens and obtained 2 chaos level techniques, the 9 Revolutions Mystic Art and the Divine Knight Thunder Wielding Art. Not long ago, Yi Chen had killed Li Mubai and obtained the chaos level cultivation method, Green Lotus Sword Art. But now Yi Chen had comprehended the defensive runes of the 9 dragons' seal. He had actually comprehended a chaos level cultivation method, Chaos Runes. Although it had reached the chaos level because of the system's reward, a chaos level cultivation method was still a chaos level cultivation method. Its grade was there for all to see. No one could deny it. Damn it, this opportunity seems to be a bit big. Fortunately, I came here directly. Otherwise, it would be a big loss if this opportunity was gone. Just as Yi Chen thought of this, a huge amount of information suddenly appeared in Yi Chen's mind. Even though Yi Chen had reached the God Martial Realm and had a primordial spirit, he was still dazed by this huge amount of information for a while. After the dizziness, Yi Chen hurriedly closed his eyes to digest for a while. Then, he opened his eyes and exhaled deeply. Damn it, this Chaos Talisman has too much information. No wonder not many people chose to cultivate runes in his previous life. Yi Chen was now in the God Martial Realm. The amount of information of an ordinary cultivation method was not difficult for Yi Chen at all. It could be directly absorbed by Yi Chen. However, the amount of information in the Chaos Rune was obviously too much. Otherwise, Yi Chen would not have almost fainted from the shock. But then again, this Chaos Rune was really not simple. When I ascend to the Eldritch world, I'll throw runes everywhere for fun. I'll throw a 10,000,000-fold gravity rune here and a fire-red thunder rune there. If I don't like anyone, I'll go to their door and throw a partial expansion rune, TSK. Just thinking about it makes me feel good. It was no wonder that Yi Chen was so happy. Chaos runes not only had their own specific attack runes, but they also had runes that could store Yi Chen's Dharma spells or divine abilities. Of course, ordinary rune arts also had this ability, but they could not store high-grade Dharma spells or divine abilities. However, Yi Chen's Chaos Rune could. For example, Yi Chen had obtained the Fire-Red Thunder by chance. Yi Chen could use the Chaos Rune to store it and then use it as a bomb to throw everywhere. It could be detonated immediately, or it could explode upon contact. It could also be detonated at any time according to Yi Chen's will. Most importantly, this kind of rune was especially good at hiding. It was very difficult to detect with divine sense. In this way, Yi Chen could use it to fight his enemies. He could also make it and give it to his subordinates to throw out when facing enemies. It would be great to blow up a large area. Otherwise, Yi Chen would not be so excited. This unexpected gain was not bad. Thinking of this, Yi Chen could not help but smile. Then, he looked at the defensive rune automatically generated by the 9 Dragons seal. At this moment, the originally incomparably profound 9 Dragons sealing rune had directly become as simple as it could be. Fortunately, no one had comprehended the innate rune art on their own. Otherwise, he would not have been able to get this reward. If not for this reward, this 9 Dragons seal might not have been broken just by comprehending the innate rune art. Thinking of this, Yi Chen raised his left index finger and drew in the air. A golden ray of light moved along with Yi Chen's finger and rapidly formed rune after rune. In the blink of an eye, Yi Chen had drawn 182 golden runes. In the next second, Yi Chen stopped and slapped the blue light door with his left hand. 182 golden runes flew toward the blue light door and collided with the 9 Dragons seal's defensive rune that was constantly circulating on the blue light door. A series of explosions sounded instantly. Bang, bang, bang. The 9 Dragons seal's defensive rune that was constantly circulating on the blue light door exploded one after another and then disappeared without a trace. Seeing this, Yi Chen waved his left hand and 9 magic weapon level long swords appeared in an instant. At the same time, Yi Chen flicked his finger and 9 drops of essence blood flew out and landed on the 9 magic weapon level long swords. In the next second, Yi Chen waved his left hand and the 9 magic weapon level long swords instantly landed around the blue light door in different directions. At the same time, Yi Chen clapped his left hand and 9 streams of innate true origin were instantly injected into the 9 magic weapon level long sword. In the next second, Yi Chen's eyes opened wide and he shouted, 9 Nether Formation Breaking Technique, Rise. Chapter 673. As soon as Yi Chen finished speaking, the 9 magic artifact swords instantly began to tremble. Buzz, buzz, buzz. At the same time, 9 streaks of light suddenly lit up on the 9 magic artifact swords. Then, they connected with each other and instantly enveloped the blue door of light. In the next second, 9 streaks of light formed a light curtain that suddenly rose from the 9 magic artifact swords and pressed towards the blue door of light. In the blink of an eye, the 9 streaks of light merged into one. Then, with a bang, they collided fiercely with the blue door of light. At this moment, the aura from the 9 Dragons seal suddenly exploded and disappeared without a trace. Seeing this, Yi Chen could not help but raise his eyebrows. The 9 Nether Formation breaking technique that he had learned in his previous life had never been used even once before his rebirth. He did not expect that the first time he used it after his rebirth, he would make a great contribution. The 9 Nether Formation breaking technique was a special technique to break formations. It focused on breaking formations with formations. However, the only bad thing was that the so-called breaking formations did not mean breaking all formations. If it was a formation of a lower grade than the 9 Nether Formation breaking technique, the 9 Nether Formation breaking technique could directly break it. If the grade of the formation was too high, there was no way to break the formation directly. It could only be broken for a certain period of time. After this period of time, the formation that was attacked would automatically recover. Take the 9 Dragons seal that Yi Chen was currently attacking as an example. As long as it exceeded 10 seconds, the 9 Dragons seal would recover again. This was something that could not be helped. After all, the 9 Dragons seal came from the 9 Orifices exquisite stone. If Yi Chen wanted to completely break the 9 Dragons seal, he still had to target the 9 Orifices exquisite stone. This was like treating a disease. If it was only treating the symptoms, it would still relapse. If he wanted to completely get rid of the pain, he had to start from the root. Of course, completely breaking the 9 Dragons seal was not necessary for Yi Chen at this moment. This was because what Yi Chen wanted to do now was to enter the mystic realm and obtain the 9 Orifices exquisite stone, not to destroy the 9 Orifices exquisite stone. Therefore, as long as Yi Chen could enter the mystic realm, it would be enough. Just as Yi Chen thought of this, the spiritual chi of heaven and earth suddenly rushed towards the blue door of light at the entrance of the secret realm, gathering madly. In the blink of an eye, a rapidly growing vortex of spiritual energy appeared above the blue light door at the entrance of the secret realm. Seeing this, Yi Chen couldn't help but smile and let out a long sigh. That's right, the 9 dragons seal at the entrance of the mystic realm was not set up by someone. It was automatically created by the 9 orifices exquisite stone, otherwise, this chi vortex wouldn't have appeared. Thinking of this, Yi Chen directly walked towards the blue door of light. Then, he stepped in and disappeared. With the disappearance of Yi Chen, the spiritual vortex that had just appeared came to an abrupt stop, and then dissipated into nothingness. At the same time, the protective runes of the 9 dragons seal, which had disappeared for a while, reappeared and began to circulate on the blue door. In the secret realm, Yi Chen opened his eyes after a brief moment of dizziness. He was stunned. All that entered Yi Chen's eyes were jade stones of different colors and shapes. They were piled up layer by layer, forming one mountain after another. He couldn't see the end of it at a glance. At this moment, the continuous jade mountain gave Yi Chen the feeling of looking at the undulating mountain range from the sky. Grand, spectacular, and vast. This was the feeling that the jade mountain range in this mystic realm gave Yi Chen. After a short moment of lamentation, Yi Chen immediately came back to his senses, and his eyes lit up. Holy shit! The jade stones here were all immortal-level jade stones. Yi Chen never thought that there would be a huge amount of immortal-level jade stones in this mystic realm that had the 9 orifices exquisite stone. Although there was no shortage of such resources in the untainted world, there was no immortal-level jade mine like the one in the Jade Mountain Range in the secret realm, where a piece of jade was at the immortal level. To be precise, if one wanted to obtain immortal-level jade stones in the primordial world, one had to mine. And if one wanted to obtain immortal-level jade stones, one had to cut, polish, and other processes after digging out the immortal-level jade stones. During this process, the probability of successfully cutting out an immortal-level jade stone was not 100%. If it was a rich mine, the probability of cutting out an immortal-level jade stone was 60% to 80%. If it was a poor mine, it would be good to have a 20% chance. Therefore, in order to obtain a large amount of immortal-level jade stones in the primordial world, one had to use a large amount of manpower to mine immortal-level jade stones. And this step was not something that could be skipped just because one had cultivation and magic treasures. Of course, the primordial world was filled with experts and mighty figures. However, even if a celestial immortal wanted immortal-level jade stones, if no one sold them, they would have to start from mining, then cut, polish, and not a single step could be skipped. Even if a celestial immortal wanted to increase efficiency and use his divine sense to check if there were any immortal-level jade stones in the immortal-level jade mine, it would be useless. This was because the outer layer of the immortal-level jade mine was a freaking forbidden magic stone. Moreover, it was a forbidden magic stone mixed with several other materials. Not only could one's divine sense not penetrate it, it was also ridiculously hard. Celestial immortals could do nothing about this and could only take it step by step. At first glance it looked very strange, but that was the truth. And now, what did Yi Chen see? A mountain range made entirely of immortal-level jade stones. Moreover, it was the kind that one could not see the end of at a glance. How could Yi Chen not be happy? One had to know that although immortal-level jade stones were not particularly precious materials in the primordial world, they were not cabbages that one could buy as many as one wanted. Of course, this was not important. What was important was that Yi Chen happened to need immortal-level jade stones, and a large number of them. Yi Chen had just comprehended the chaotic cultivation method and the chaotic talisman. If he had a large number of immortal-level jade stones, Yi Chen could start to practice making offensive jade talismans before he ascended to the primordial world. Once Yi Chen completely mastered the method of making offensive jade talismans. He could make a large number of offensive jade talismans and give them to the army of the Samsara Immortal City for self-defense. Or, he could directly use them to deal with the demon tribe by bombarding them wildly. This method of attack was almost no different from Yi Chen's personal attack. In this way, Yi Chen's army would not only have the means to protect themselves, but also could use it to expand the territory for Yi Chen. How simple and violent it was. Just thinking about it made one feel excited. Otherwise, Yi Chen would not be so happy. Of course, this was only one of the benefits of immortal-level jade stones to Yi Chen. Besides this, immortal-level jade stones were immortal-level materials and could be used to integrate into the Samsara Immortal City to enhance the internal space of the Samsara Immortal City. Thinking of this, Yi Chen could not help but raise his eyebrows and then use his left hand. In the next second, Yi Chen could not help but be stunned. F***ck. I failed. Yi Chen wanted to start collecting immortal-level jade stones directly. Who would have thought that he did not succeed? Otherwise, Yi Chen would not be so surprised. Thinking of this, Yi Chen's divine sense instantly probed the jade mountain under his feet. After a few breaths, Yi Chen smiled playfully. These immortal-level jade mountains looked like they were piled up together. Who would have thought that they were not but a whole? This 9 orifices exquisite stone was really going to become a spirit. In order to prevent it from being caught, it specially created such a large immortal-level jade mountain. What the F***ck? While disgusting others, it could also stimulate their greed. Then, they could take the opportunity to slip away. This was indeed a good move. If it were someone else, they might not be able to do it. This immortal-level jade mountain was a hole. It was too difficult to dig, and the value was indeed not low. Unfortunately, this move was useless against me. This time, I want the immortal-level jade mountain. The 9 orifices exquisite stone can forget about escaping. Chapter 674. Thinking of this, Yi Chen could not help but raise his eyebrows. Then, his primordial spirit moved, and his huge divine sense instantly enveloped the entire mystic realm. Yi Chen did this naturally to prevent the 9 orifices exquisite stone from escaping, while Yi Chen was collecting the immortal-level jade mountain range. Yi Chen did not want to see such a situation happen. After all, Yi Chen's key goal here was the 9 orifices exquisite stone. As for the immortal-level jade mountain range, although Yi Chen wanted it and its value was not low, compared to the 9 orifices exquisite stone, the difference between the immortal-level jade mountain range and the 9 orifices exquisite stone was like heaven and earth. To be precise, even 1,000,000 jade mountain ranges added together could not compare to the value of a single 9 orifices exquisite stone. After all, the 9 orifices exquisite stone was too precious and rare. It would take hundreds of millions of years for it to fully mature. One could imagine how difficult it was to appear. As for Yi Chen not directly using his divine sense to detect the 9 orifices exquisite stone and then obtain it, it was not that Yi Chen did not want to, but Yi Chen had no choice. This was because the immortal-level jade mountain range had a strong blocking effect on divine sense, and the 9 orifices exquisite stone happened to be hidden in the immortal-level jade mountain range. Of course, this was not the key. The most important thing was that the 9 orifices exquisite stone could change its hiding location at any time. Therefore, Yi Chen could not directly capture the 9 orifices exquisite stone. It was also because of this reason that Yi Chen simply released his divine sense to lock down the entire mystic realm space, and then began to collect the immortal-level jade mountain range. This way, not only would Yi Chen be able to obtain the jade mountain range that was not low in value, but he would also be able to obtain the most precious 9 orifices exquisite stone. It was the best of both worlds. Thinking of this, Yi Chen could not help but smile. Then, he raised his left hand and waved his fingers. Hundreds of spatial blades instantly appeared and slashed fiercely at the immortal-level Jade Mountain range. In the next second, the sound of cloth being torn apart rang out. Sizzle, sizzle. Seeing this, Yi Chen raised his left hand and then grabbed at the void. In the next second, dozens of immortal gray jade mountains flew up one after another and headed straight for Yi Chen. When the huge jade mountain arrived in front of Yi Chen, it disappeared without a trace. It was Yi Chen who had stored all of these jade mountains into his small world. With the disappearance of dozens of immortal jade mountains, a large piece of the immortal jade mountain range that stretched as far as the eye could see instantly disappeared, revealing the soil underneath. Glancing at the jade mountain range that was missing a large chunk, Yi Chen's lips curled into a smile. Then, he once again waved out several hundred space blades, violently cutting the immortal gray jade mountain range. Time passed little by little. When Yi Chen had cut down the endless jade mountain range to the last jade mountain, a white jade-like ball of light suddenly flew out of the jade mountain and disappeared in a flash. Seeing this, Yi Chen's eyes widened. Trying to run? Yi Chen's divine sense immediately moved and instantly enveloped the white jade-like ball of light that had rushed to the entrance of the secret realm, firmly fixing it in place. In the next second, Yi Chen's figure moved and instantly arrived in front of the white jade-like ball of light. With Yi Chen's arrival, the white jade-like ball of light emitted a light that instantly became brighter. Seeing this, Yi Chen couldn't help but raise his eyebrows. Then, he opened his mouth and said, "It seems that you've developed a consciousness. Unfortunately, you're very useful to me. No matter what, I can't let you go." As soon as Yi Chen finished speaking, the white jade-like ball of light emitted an even brighter light. If it wasn't firmly fixed in place by Yi Chen's tyrannical divine sense, it would definitely be trembling non-stop. Yi Chen glanced at the white jade-like ball of light again, and then grabbed it with his right hand. In an instant, the white jade-like ball of light was in his hand. At this moment, the system notification sounded. Ding! Congratulations to player for obtaining Connate Cardinal Treasure, 9 Orifices Exquisite Stone. As soon as the system notification ended, Yi Chen let out a long breath. He didn't recognize wrongly, and he didn't guess wrongly. It really was the 9 Orifices Exquisite Stone. The strongest cornerstone of the Providence dynasty was finally in his hands. Thinking of this, Yi Chen was instantly overjoyed. At this moment, the white jade-like ball of light dissipated, and a piece of milky white jade that was the size of 2 palms with 9 golden spots of light inside appeared in Yi Chen's right hand. Yi Chen, who noticed this change, was instantly stunned. So this is what the 9 Orifices Exquisite Stone looks like. It's not very eye-catching. I thought it had 9 F** holes, so it's not. No matter what, the 9 Orifices Exquisite Stone now belongs to me. Thinking of this, Yi Chen couldn't help but laugh wildly at the sky. Yi Chen couldn't help but be excited. After all, the 9 Orifices Exquisite Stone was the best material for making imperial jade seals. With it, any dynasty of Providence would no longer be restricted by the upper limit of their grade. To be precise, as long as one was powerful enough, had enough strength, and had enough territory, they could directly aim for the strongest Providence dynasty. There would not be a situation where one would stop completely after reaching a certain grade and could not continue to improve. Of course, the benefits of using the 9 Orifices Exquisite Stone as the imperial jade seal of the Providence dynasty were not limited to this. Rumor had it that the 9 Orifices Exquisite Stone had the heart of 9 orifices. It could increase the overall cultivation speed of the Providence dynasty by 9 times from the original foundation. And this was naturally what Yi Chen wanted to see more. After all, Yi Chen had received many super missions, and the prerequisite for completing these missions was to become a saint within 10,000 years, and to do so with strength. Therefore, Yi Chen urgently wanted to build a Providence dynasty and quickly turn his Providence dynasty into the strongest Providence dynasty. Only in this way would Yi Chen be able to obtain the support of an abnormal cultivation speed, and then he would be able to achieve the Tao within 10,000 years. Of course, Yi Chen was not too sure if the 9 orifices exquisite stone had such an effect or not for the time being. Because this news came from rumors, even if Yi Chen was reborn, he could not determine the specifics. After all, in Yi Chen's previous life, there had never been a Providence dynasty that used the 9 orifices exquisite stone to make an imperial jade seal. Therefore, the specifics could only be determined after Yi Chen built the Providence dynasty. It would naturally be best if there was a 9-fold support effect. If there was no support, Yi Chen would at most be a little disappointed. However, this did not stop Yi Chen from being pleasantly surprised. Because Yi Chen had now obtained the 9 orifices exquisite stone that was enough to make all the emperors of the Providence dynasty go crazy with envy. Ha ha, this is my lucky chance, this is my lucky chance. Not bad, not bad. Just as Yi Chen thought up to this point, the 9 orifices exquisite stone in Yi Chen's hand suddenly began to vibrate violently. You want to run away after being in my hands? Yi Chen, who sensed the 9 orifices exquisite stone's strange movements, snorted coldly. He raised his left hand and directly forced out a drop of blood essence, dripping it on the 9 orifices exquisite stone. However, Yi Chen's blood essence was instantly repelled as soon as it came into contact with the 9 orifices exquisite stone. Seeing this, Yi Chen narrowed his eyes and then shouted, "If you don't want your consciousness to collapse, obediently acknowledge me as your master. This way you can also change your way of living. Although you will lose your freedom, your consciousness can exist forever." Otherwise, as Yi Chen spoke up to this point, a violent murderous intent instantly rose, and then directly rushed towards the 9 orifices exquisite stone in his hand. Chapter 675. Just as Yi Chen's violent killing intent came into contact with the 9 orifices exquisite stone, the 9 orifices exquisite stone, which was originally resisting to the death, immediately quieted down. Yi Chen, who realized this, raised his eyebrows and continued, "I'll give you 3 days to decide. I'll give you 3 seconds to consider. If you don't agree, I'll directly destroy your consciousness and not give you any chance to think." As soon as Yi Chen said that, the 9 orifices exquisite stone, which had just quieted down, trembled violently. Seeing this, the corners of Yi Chen's mouth couldn't help but curl up. 1. As soon as Yi Chen said that, the 9 orifices exquisite stone trembled again. At the same time, Yi Chen's blood essence, which was sent flying by the 9 orifices exquisite stone, dripped onto the 9 orifices exquisite stone again. 2. The 9 orifices exquisite stone trembled even more. At this moment, the 9 orifices exquisite stone suddenly shone with a bloody light. Then, they saw that Yi Chen's blood essence was absorbed by the 9 orifices exquisite stone. At this moment, there was a mysterious connection between Yi Chen and the 9 orifices exquisite stone. Yi Chen's eyes lit up when he noticed this. Damn it, I finally succeeded. Although the 9 orifices exquisite stone was the top material for making the imperial jade seal, it was 2 completely different concepts from having consciousness. This was because it involved the golden dragon of destiny. That's right, it was the golden dragon of destiny. When the Destiny dynasty was first established, destiny gathered in the imperial jade seal. After the imperial jade seal condensed, it was a divine item of destiny. Although the golden dragon of destiny was between a living creature and a half-living creature, it had the effect of attacking, devouring, suppressing the destiny of the country, and preserving the destiny of the country forever. Among all the golden dragons of destiny, the imperial jade seal made of the 9 orifices exquisite stone was the strongest after condensing the destiny of the country. To be precise, the golden dragon of destiny formed by the 9 orifices exquisite stone could kill all demons below the lesser demon realm as soon as it appeared. Of course, this was only the ability of the imperial jade seal refined from the 9 orifices exquisite stone that had yet to develop its own consciousness. It condensed the nation's fate and formed the golden dragon of fate. If it was a jade seal refined from a 9 orifices exquisite stone with consciousness, then the effect would be increased by 1 level, and it would be able to directly kill all the great demons that intruded into the empire. And this was the reason why Yi Chen had racked his brains to threaten the exquisite 9 orifices stone to submit to him. Now that he had the imperial jade seal, the Xianyuan sword was more than qualified to be the emperor's sword. All that was missing was the imperial edict. The imperial edict. The quality of this thing didn't matter too much, but it was naturally best to have the best. Unfortunately, the highest level imperial edicts were the heavenly book, earthly book, and human book. The heavenly book was the investiture of the gods. It should be in the hands of the primeval Lord of Heaven now. As for the Earth Scroll, it belonged to the ancestor of the earthly immortals, Zhen Yuanzi. The Book of Human Beings was the Book of Life and Death. Hoodoo was still alive, and she hadn't turned into reincarnation yet. Damn it, my cultivation is too weak now. I can't snatch connate cardinal treasures, even if I have them. Fortunately, the grade of the imperial edict didn't have much effect on the dynasty of destiny. Otherwise, it would really be troublesome. He just didn't know if there were any materials to refine the imperial edict in the underground palace mystic realm. If there weren't, he could only find Emperor Qin's imperial edict and use it temporarily. Thinking of this, Yi Chen narrowed his eyes. Then, with a thought, he instantly kept the 9 orifices exquisite stone into his small world. In the next second, Yi Chen moved his feet and flew directly to the sky above the only remaining immortal-grade jade mountain in the immortal-grade jade mountain range. After the 5 space blades cut through it, Yi Chen casually kept the last immortal-grade jade mountain. Looking at the terrifying number of immortal-grade jade mountain ranges in the small world, and the 9 orifices exquisite stone that had already recognized him as its master, Yi Chen couldn't help but laugh wildly. The harvest this time was really not bad. Awesome. Thinking of this, Yi Chen used his divine sense to scan every inch of the mystic realm 3 times. After confirming that there was nothing good, Yi Chen directly flew out of the mystic realm. After a short moment of dizziness, Yi Chen arrived at Dark Moon Town, which had been blasted into ruins by the violent lightning of the Li clan. At this very moment, thick smoke billowed in the sky above Dark Moon Town. On the ground, there were wantonly burning spots everywhere. Accompanying all of this was the smell of burning corpses in the air. Looking at the lifeless Dark Moon Town, Yi Chen curled his lips in disdain. If they didn't have any ideas about me, they wouldn't have ended up like this. But then again, I still have to thank this group of idiots for having ideas about me. Otherwise, I wouldn't have obtained the Chaos level cultivation technique, the Chaos Talisman, and even more so, I wouldn't have gotten the immortal grade Jade Mountain Range and the connate cardinal treasure, the 9 orifices exquisite stone. Thinking of this, Yi Chen couldn't help but raise his eyebrows. Then, with a thought. In the next second, the space in front of Yi Chen suddenly distorted. Looking at the distorted space, Yi Chen stepped into it and disappeared. In the real world, Reincarnation City, the space in the hall of the city lord's residence suddenly distorted. In the next second, Yi Chen, who had left for nearly 2 hours, stepped out and appeared in the hall. The moment Yi Chen appeared, a shout was heard. "Greetings, Lord!" Hearing this, Yi Chen couldn't help but be stunned. Then, he looked at the door. When Yi Chen saw the fully armed soldiers of Reincarnation Immortal City at the door, he couldn't help but smile and ask, "Is Zhou Tsang here too?" "Lord, General Zhou Tsang has just returned to that world. He said that he needs to prepare some provisions. Otherwise, he would have to go back to solve the problem of food every time. It's not good for defense." When a soldier of Reincarnation Immortal City heard this, he hurriedly bowed and greeted Yi Chen loudly. When Yi Chen heard this, he was slightly stunned. Then, he smiled and nodded his head. Very good. Remember, in addition to guarding the city, you have to work hard to cultivate and catch up with your realms as soon as possible. Yes, Lord. When the soldiers of Reincarnation Immortal City, who were on duty at the door of the hall, heard this, their hearts were filled with warmth. Then, they bowed and greeted loudly. These soldiers knew that they were the weakest among the soldiers in the Reincarnation Immortal City. They also knew that Yi Chen had asked them to come to the real world to defend the city, because he wanted to give them special treatment so that they could become stronger quickly. It was precisely because they knew that they were so excited. At the same time, they were extremely touched. One should know that they were all poor commoners. If they weren't lucky enough to follow Yi Chen, they wouldn't be envied by so many people. Moreover, they wouldn't be envied by so many people in the future. And all of this was given to them by their lord, Yi Chen. How could they not be grateful? Hearing the respect and gratitude in the soldier's words, Yi Chen nodded his head with a smile. Then, he looked at the flaming tiger Yi Lin, the treasure-hunting fish Yi Xiaoyu, the golden-haired monkey, and the big turtle with the bloodline of the black tortoise and said, "Cultivate well. Cultivate well, don't slack off." "Yes, brother, master." Hearing this, all the pets of intelligence nodded their heads in unison. When Yi Chen heard this, he nodded his head with satisfaction. Then, he looked at the flaming tiger Yi Lin and said, "Yi Lin, after I went to the game world, your cultivation is the strongest here. Although I've sorted out the demon tribe and there won't be many powerful demons in the short term, you still can't let your guard down. Do you understand? Brother, I won't let the demon tribe come within 100 miles of Samsara City." Yi Lin nodded her head heavily and replied. Yi Chen nodded his head with a smile. Just as he was about to go to the diamond-level game cabin, he suddenly thought of something. Then, he looked at the soldiers at the door and said, "In less than 2 days, the protective shield outside the city will disappear. At that time, there may be humans coming. No matter who they are, no one is allowed to come close, let alone enter the city. No matter who they are, no matter what they say, ignore them. If they dare to force their way in, kill them without mercy. Pass these words on to Zhouzong." "Yes, my lord." When the soldiers on duty heard this, their faces turned solemn. Then, they bowed in unison and saluted loudly. When Yi Chen heard this, he nodded his head. Then, he walked straight to the diamond-level game cabin, lifted his leg, entered it, and lay down. The moment the door of the game cabin closed, Yi Chen returned to the game world. In the game world, in Runan Commandery, Yuzhou, a pillar of light suddenly appeared in the mansion of the Li clan with 3 entrances and 3 exits. When the pillar of light disappeared, Yi Chen appeared directly here. At this moment, a world announcement suddenly sounded. Ding! Congratulations to player Yi Chen for comprehending the Talisman of Chaos on his own. Special reward. Innate attribute points x 300. Ding! Congratulations to player Yi Chen for being the first to be accepted as a disciple. Special reward. Innate attribute points x 100. Chapter 676. Ding! Teacher, impart knowledge and answer questions. As player Yi Chen is the first to obtain the right to accept a disciple, the special conditions have been met. The Master and Disciple system is officially activated. As for the specific gameplay, players are free to explore. Ding! As player Yi Chen has activated the Master and Disciple system, player Yi Chen is rewarded with the right to choose Legacy Skill +3. The world announcement was repeated 3 times, instantly causing the entire world channel to explode. F***CK. F***CK. What did I just see? Yi Chen comprehended the Chaos Talisman? What grade of cultivation technique was this? It even gave him 300 innate attribute points as a reward. The level isn't important. What's important is the world announcement at the back. Yi Chen can accept a disciple. Waha, if Boss Yi Chen accepts me as a disciple, doesn't that mean I can learn all the skills that Boss Yi Chen No, Yi Chen's master knows? Dream on. F***ck, why don't you think about it? Yi Chen doesn't even accept underlings, how can he accept a disciple? That's not necessarily true. What if Boss Yi Chen wants to accept a disciple? Moreover, a disciple is much more reliable than an underling. Reliable my ass. Think about what era this is. In this day and age, disciples don't treat their master as a human. Do you think there are few of them? F***ck, you guys only saw Yi Chen's glory. Did you guys forget about the master and disciple system? Look at the world announcement at the back. It means that we can also accept disciples. What's the benefit of accepting a disciple? F***ck, why do I feel like this is a scam? Isn't there a saying like this? If there's a problem, the disciple will do the work. What do you think is the benefit of accepting a disciple? Waha, I'm the leader of the Heavenly Dragon sect, Long Wuxin. I'm officially accepting disciples. If anyone wants to become a disciple, come quickly. I won't take a single cent. I'm Hu Lijing. I'm officially accepting disciples. If anyone wants to become a disciple, come quickly to Yangzhou. Master Yi Chen, please accept me as your disciple. I, Zhao Bu'er, swear to the heavens that as long as Master Yi Chen is willing to accept me as your disciple, I will be loyal to you and serve you with all my heart. Big brother Yi Chen, please accept me as your disciple. I'm only 16 years old this year. My skin is fair and I've never been in a relationship before. As long as Big Brother Yi Chen is willing to accept me as your disciple, I'm willing to do whatever Big Brother Yi Chen wants me to do. The World Channel was flooded with messages because of the sudden appearance of the world announcement. Yi Chen glanced at it, smiled coldly, and stopped paying attention. When the players saw the world announcement, they wanted to be Yi Chen's disciple. Yi Chen knew why. To be precise, other than relying on Yi Chen, the gamers were also thinking of reaping benefits. After all, Yi Chen was the true number one player of the human race, the strongest player of the three races, the most powerful player in the world, and the most powerful player in the world. If they could become Yi Chen's disciple, even if Yi Chen revealed something from the gaps between his fingers, it would be enough to satisfy them. Of course, this was not the most important thing. The most important thing was that after becoming Yi Chen's disciple, they would most likely be able to live in Yi Chen's samsara city in the real world. This was something that most of the human race players wanted to see the most. This was because in the eyes of most of the human race players, samsara city in the real world was the safest place. This was what the players were thinking. Unfortunately, after Yi Chen heard the world announcement, he immediately excluded the players from the real world from the list of disciples he would accept. After all, it was fine to accept the ancients as disciples, but it would be nonsense to accept the players from the real world. One had to know that before the meteor fell, the culture of respecting one's teacher, which had been passed down for thousands of years, had already been diluted to an extremely weak degree. Of course, students still respected their teachers on the surface, and there was also respect from the bottom of their hearts. However, compared to the ancient, a teacher for a day is a father for life. The difference was like heaven and earth. There was no comparison at all. It was already like this before the meteor fell, let alone now after the meteor fell. At this time, people had experienced killing, plotting, scheming, violence, and bloodshed. Everyone was vigilant, and 99% of humanity had already been lost due to the law of the jungle in the real world. Therefore, accepting the players as disciples was purely looking for trouble. How could Yi Chen, who had been reborn, make such a choice? As for the other players, they took advantage of the world announcement to accept disciples without restraint. Yi Chen did not care at all, because it was not necessary. The players now were not stupid. Who would find it troublesome to become the disciple of someone who was at the same level as them? Moreover, even if someone really did become the disciple, and there were many of them, forming a huge force, Yi Chen would not care. Such an existence could be wiped out by the army of the reincarnation immortal city in minute. What was there to care about? In his previous life, the master and disciple system did not appear. He did not expect that after his rebirth, this thing would appear. He did not know if the 4 chaos-level cultivation techniques were the key to activating the master and disciple system, or the chaos talisman was the key, but then again, this master and disciple system, why did it feel like it had something to do with the sect? It was no wonder that Yi Chun thought so. After all, the 3 pure ones in the Eldritch world had established the Run sect, the Chan sect, and the Jie sect. Although they wanted to establish a sect to become a sage, and then fight for the fate of heaven and earth, the 3 pure ones were the true masters. The master and disciple system, if he accepted enough disciples, and if they were strong enough, it was not impossible to establish a sect to become a sage. However, his goal was to prove his Tao through strength, not to establish a sect to become a sage. Thinking of this, Yi Chen looked directly at the attribute panel. When Yi Chen saw the legacy cultivation technique +3 on the attribute panel, he could not help but raise his eyebrows. Previously, when the chaos talisman appeared, it indicated that it could be taught. Now, the world announcement rewarded him with 3 free choices of inheritance because he had activated the master and disciple system, which meant that I can even impart my cultivation technique to others. This could be. Thinking of this, Yi Chen raised his hand without hesitation and tapped on the 9 revolutions mysterious art, Shunshao lightning controlling technique, and green lotus sword technique. At this moment, the system's notification sounded. Ding! Congratulations to player Yi Chen. The chaos level cultivation technique, 9 revolutions mysterious art, can be taught automatically. Restriction, family. Ding! Congratulations to player Yi Chen. The chaos level cultivation technique, Shunshao lightning controlling technique, can be taught automatically. Restriction, family. Ding! Congratulations to player Yi Chen. The chaos level cultivation technique, green lotus sword technique, can be taught automatically. Restriction, number of people who can be taught is x99. When the system's notification ended, Yi Chen was stunned. Damn it! There was a restriction. Thinking of this, Yi Chen hurriedly looked at the attribute panel. When Yi Chen saw the 4 chaos-level cultivation techniques on the attribute panel, except for the chaos talisman, the 9 revolutions mysterious art and the Shunshao lightning controlling technique were marked with the word family, and the green lotus sword technique was marked with a restriction of 99. Seeing this, Yi Chen was dumbfounded. Damn it, what was going on? Yi Chen originally wanted to teach the green lotus sword technique and the Shunshao lightning controlling technique to his generals and soldiers as a standard. In this way, Yi Chen's soldiers and generals would all have the ability to destroy everything. But the result was that the cultivation techniques Yi Chen wanted to teach were all limited. Only the chaos talisman was not. How could Yi Chen not be dumbfounded? This was not scientific. Wait, could it be that the 9 revolutions mysterious art and the Shunshao lightning controlling technique were the cultivation techniques that he comprehended after watching Pan Gu open the sky, so he could only teach them to his family, and the green lotus sword technique was a cultivation technique that he snatched, so there was a restriction on the number of people he could teach it to. As for the chaos talisman, he comprehended it by himself after watching the Seal of the 9 Dragons, so there was no restriction. That was probably it. Damn it, forget it, there were restrictions. It was much better than not being able to teach the cultivation techniques before. He would go back now and teach the 9 revolutions mysterious art and the Shunshao lightning controlling technique to Zhao Yu, Chan Wan, Kai Meier and Zhenju S. As for the green lotus sword technique, he would teach it to Zhao Yun, Dian Xiong, and the other generals. As for the chaos talisman, he would teach it to Gui Yi, Kai Yin, Mizhu, Sun Qing, and the other civil officials. That was not bad. It just so happened that these subordinates did not have any good cultivation techniques. With these cultivation techniques, it would be difficult for them not to rise. At that time, everyone would be able to take charge of their own affairs, and it would be easier for the Samsara Empire to become the strongest dynasty. Chapter 677. Thinking of this, Yi Chen raised his eyebrows. Then, he used his mind to distort the space in front of him. After glancing at the distorted space, Yi Chen stepped into it and disappeared. Above the expeditionary village, an affiliated village of the reincarnation immortal city, the space in the hall of the city governor's mansion of the reincarnation immortal city was suddenly distorted. In the next second, Yi Chen stepped out and appeared here. At this moment, the soldiers on duty at the entrance of the hall saw Yi Chen. After being stunned for a moment, they hurriedly stepped forward and bowed to him. "Greetings, my lord." Hearing this, Yi Chen nodded and said, "Go and call all the generals and military counselors here. I have something to say." "Yes, my lord." Hearing this, the soldiers hurriedly bowed to him. Yi Chen nodded and then left the hall directly. He walked toward the back of the house. In front of the round arched door of the back of the house, Yi Chen heard the pleasant sound of a zither. After being stunned for a moment, Yi Chen could not help but smile. Then, he walked through the round arched door and came to the back of the house. At this moment, all the girls were playing in the pavilion. To be precise, Kai Mei was playing the zither, while Chan Wan, Zhen Jiesa, and Mi Zhen were dancing. Zhao Yu, Huang Weiner, and Zhen Jiesa's 4 sisters were learning from them. The scene was very warm and harmonious. When Yi Chen saw this, the corners of his mouth curled up involuntarily. Fortunately, they were all beauties in history. If they were women in the real world, they would not be so harmonious. Thinking of this, Yi Chen walked directly to the pavilion. At this moment, Kai Mei, who was playing the zither, was the first to see Yi Chen. After being stunned for a moment, she hurriedly stood up and called out happily, "My husband!" Following Kai Mei's call, Zhao Yu, Chan Wan, Mi Zhen, Huang Weiner, and Zhen Jiesa's 5 sisters also stopped and looked at Yi Chen together. Then, they called out, "My husband!" Yi Chen chuckled and nodded. Then, he came to the pavilion and sat down on the stone bench. At this moment, an obedient maid hurriedly brought a teapot to the side of the stone table. After pouring a cup of tea for Yi Chen, she bowed and left. Yi Chen picked up his teacup and took a sip. Just as he was about to speak, the system notification suddenly rang out. "Ding! Congratulations to player for drinking Tao comprehending tea. Lifespan increased by 1 year." When the system notification ended, Yi Chen couldn't help but be taken aback. Then, he smiled. Fortunately, Zhao Yu, Chan Wan, and the others didn't treat it as a treasure and kept it. Not bad, not bad. The enlightenment tea could extend one's lifespan and had the ability to resurrect people. Even the natives of the game world could be resurrected. It was also because of this that Yi Chen specially gave the women and his subordinates a lot of enlightenment tea. His goal was for them to use it now. One was to extend their lifespan, and the other was to give them hundreds of chances to resurrect. Originally, Yi Chen was worried that Zhao Yu, Chan Wan, Kai Mei, and the others would be like many women in ancient times. They would solemnly store good things away and wouldn't be willing to use them. But now Yi Chen wasn't worried. Look, the enlightenment tea was used as normal water. What was there to worry about? Thinking of this, Yi Chen looked at the women and said, "This time, I came back to impart some cultivation techniques to you all." When Zhao Yu, Chan Wan, Kai Mei, Mi Zhen, and the others heard this, they were all stunned. They didn't think that Yi Chen came back just for this. Of course, this wasn't the key. The key was that Yi Chen gave each of them a Xiantian cultivation technique not long ago. How could they not be stunned when he was going to give them another one? Looking at the stunned women, Yi Chen couldn't help but smile and then said, "Before, I couldn't impart the best cultivation techniques to you, but now that the restriction has been lifted, I naturally have to impart the best cultivation techniques to you all." Husband. When the women heard this, their hearts were all warmed, and then they called out in unison, Husband. When Yi Chen heard this, he smiled slightly and then said, "There are 4 cultivation techniques that I can impart now, all of which are at the chaos level. One is the 9 revolutions mysterious art. This is the foundation of my life. When cultivated to the extreme, I can prove my Tao through strength. Another is the divine night lightning manipulation technique. It can control all lightning in the world. When cultivated to the great completion, you can kill 3 corpses to prove your Tao. The third is the green lotus sword technique. I just got it not long ago, but its lethality can't be underestimated. It can also kill 3 corpses to prove your Tao. The fourth is the talisman of chaos, which contains all the information of talisman Tao. It can be used to attack and defend. It is ever-changing and powerful. It can also kill 3 corpses to prove your Tao. These 4 cultivation techniques are the top cultivation technique. After practicing them, you can prove your Tao and become a sage. Do you want to learn all of them or choose which ones? Yi Chen originally wanted to impart the 9 revolutions mysterious art and the divine night lightning manipulation technique to the women, but when Yi Chen really opened his mouth, he vetoed this idea. It was not that Yi Chen didn't want to teach them, but Yi Chen wanted to ask the women's opinion. After all, Yi Chen didn't know what the women liked to learn for the time being. As soon as Yi Chen's words fell, the women were stunned. They didn't expect that the cultivation techniques Yi Chen was going to impart to them were the top cultivation technique. Moreover, among them, there was also Yi Chen's foundation, the 9 revolutions mysterious art. At this moment, the warmth in the women's hearts surged one after another, wave after wave, causing them to be extremely touched. There was no other way. The information revealed by Yi Chen was so stimulating that the women couldn't help but be moved. After all, they were women. Although they were all Yi Chen's women, they also understood one thing. Cultivation techniques had always been fated with women. Otherwise, from ancient times to the present, there wouldn't be a rule that only men and not women. After coming to their senses, the women looked at each other, and then looked at Yi Chen and said, "Husband, we choose the green lotus sword technique and the talisman of chaos." When Yi Chen heard this, he couldn't help but be stunned. However, Yi Chen didn't expect that the women didn't choose the 9 revolutions mysterious art and the Shunshao thunder-controlling technique. After a short moment of confusion, Yi Chen immediately realized one thing. The women deliberately didn't learn the 9 revolutions mysterious art and the Shunshao thunder-controlling technique, because these 2 cultivation techniques were learned by Yi Chen a long time ago. Even if the women had never asked Yi Chen what his cultivation technique was, they could infer it from their daily contact and what Yi Chen had just said. As for their purpose, it was to ensure that Yi Chen had a unique cultivation technique. Thinking of this, Yi Chen couldn't help but feel warm in his heart. After coming to his senses, Yi Chen nodded and then said, "Okay." After Yi Chen finished speaking, he raised his left hand and then pointed in the void. 20 streams of information instantly rushed to the women. At the same time, Yi Chen drew runes in the void with his right hand. 10 sealing runes appeared in an instant and were imprinted on the women's foreheads. Naturally, Yi Chen did this to seal the information of the cultivation technique. To be precise, he sealed most of the information of the cultivation technique of the Chaos Talisman. As for the reason, it was very simple. Among the 2 cultivation techniques, the green lotus sword technique was fine, but the Chaos Talisman was hard to say. The amount of information it contained almost made Yi Chen faint. The women hadn't even reached the mortal evolution state, so they naturally couldn't handle the huge amount of information of the Chaos Talisman. After 10 minutes, the girls opened their eyes one after another. They then looked at Yi Chen and shouted in unison, "Brother Yi! Thank you, husband!" Hearing this, Yi Chen smiled and nodded. Then, he picked up the teacup and drank it in one gulp. Ding! Congratulations to player Yi Chen, lifespan increased by 5 years. As soon as the system notification ended, Yi Chen waved his right hand, and the universe cauldron appeared before Yi Chen. At this moment, an intense qi of creation suddenly appeared and surged. Chapter 678. Yi Chen couldn't help but smirk as he felt the creation aura rushing towards him. The cauldron of heaven and earth could reverse the universe and create immeasurable creation. Previously, he hadn't been able to use the cauldron of heaven and earth because he didn't have a suitable weapon. Today, the time had come. As Yi Chen thought of this, Zhao Yu, Chan Wan, Kai Mei Mi Zhen, Huang Wan'er, and the 5 Jin sisters suddenly activated the Green Lotus Sword art and the Chaos Talisman that they had just learned. Then, a huge amount of heaven and earth spirit qi surged towards the girls. At the same time, the girls closed their eyes at the same time. Enlightenment. Yi Chen, who noticed this change, was stunned. The creation aura could lead the cultivation technique to activate automatically and allow one to gain enlightenment. Why didn't I experience any changes? As soon as Yi Chen thought of this, the spiritual qi of heaven and earth, which was originally gathering towards the back of the city lord's mansion, suddenly became violent. In an instant, it formed a huge vortex of spiritual qi, and then poured towards the girls. The moment Yi Chen saw the huge whirlpool, an indescribable feeling appeared in his heart. At this moment, Yi Chen had a feeling that if he wanted to absorb the heaven and earth spirit qi, he could take it away at any time. However, this would cause the girls to miss out on this opportunity. After realizing this, Yi Chen was stunned for a moment. Then, a trace of understanding appeared in his heart. I am the owner of the Khanate Cardinal Treasure, the Cauldron of Heaven and Earth. I control the creation aura and can bestow creation to all living things. Creation. The Cauldron of Heaven and Earth could turn Hotian into Khanate. The creation aura in the cauldron was endless. Its use was probably not as simple as allowing one to gain enlightenment. At this thought, Yi Chen subconsciously looked at the girls' attribute panels. When Yi Chen saw that their original 6-star immortal spirit body had all become 7-star immortal spirit bodies, his eyes widened and he hurriedly looked at his own attribute panel. When Yi Chen saw that his bone frame had changed from a 1-star immortal spirit body to a 2-star immortal spirit body, his eyes lit up. Holy shit! It really upgraded the bone structure. This creation qi was a little heaven-defying. Yi Chen couldn't be blamed for thinking this way. The creation aura's ability to improve one's bone structure was really too abnormal. Even though the increase was not much, the problem was that the fortune qi in the cauldron of heaven and earth was endless. There was no limit to it at all. To be more precise, Yi Chen could upgrade as many people's bone frames as he wanted. There was no shortage of creation qi. Just as Yi Chen thought of this, the aura of advancement suddenly appeared on the bodies of Zhao Yu, Chan Wan, Kai Mei, Huang Wan'er, Mi Zhen and Zhen Jusei. Then, he saw their auras rise again and again until they reached the great circle of the sage martial generals. At the same time, streaks of sharp sword qi and ancient golden runes appeared one after another around the girls. They then revolved around the girls. When Yi Chen saw this, he couldn't help but raise his brows. Zhao Yu, Kai Mei, Chan Wan, and Mi Zhen were either first-rate historical beauties or super first-rate historical beauties. Now, they were all sage martial generals at the great circle of the sage martial generals and could break through to the mortal evolution state at any time. If this was discovered by the players, they would probably go crazy from excitement. Luckily, he took out the cauldron of heaven and earth today. Otherwise, he really didn't know when he would discover the use of the creation aura in the cauldron of heaven and earth. After this opportunity, their understanding of the Green Lotus Sword technique and Chaos runes would definitely soar. Moreover, these two cultivation methods would be able to operate on their own even if they didn't deliberately cultivate them. The most important thing was that their bone frames had improved once again. Not bad, not bad. Just as Yi Chen thought of this, the girls opened their eyes one after another. Then, they were all stunned on the spot. I'm a Sage Marshal General at the Great Circle of the Sage Marshal Generals, Zhao Yu said with a face of shock and ecstasy. Sister, me too, Chan Wan shouted in disbelief. Me too, the girls finished speaking one after another and stopped at the same time. Then, they all looked at the cauldron of heaven and earth floating in front of Yi Chen. In the next second, all the girls looked at Yi Chen and cried out emotionally, "Thank you. Thank you, husband." The girls were all very intelligent. They might have been a little confused at the beginning, but now that they had come to their senses, how could they not know the reason why their realms had suddenly soared? When Yi Chen heard this, he nodded with a smile and said, "Take some time to digest the information. You guys should digest the information you've just gained. I'm going to refine a batch of weapons." "Yes, husband." When the girls heard this, they all responded in unison. Yi Chen nodded and then clapped his right hand in the air. With a bang, the lid of the cauldron of heaven and earth flew up instantly. At this moment, an extremely strong creation Qi appeared at the mouth of the cauldron of heaven and earth. In just an instant, it was controlled by a mysterious force and then locked in the cauldron of heaven and earth. When he saw this, Yi Chen couldn't help but raise his eyebrows. Then, with a thought, 9,991 magic artifact swords appeared in an instant and flew into the cauldron of heaven and earth. In the past, Yi Chen had obtained 10,000 magic artifact swords. However, he had used up 9 of them to break the seal of the 9 dragons. Afterward, all of them were destroyed. Otherwise, Yi Chen would have brought out 10,000 of them. Of course, this wasn't important. What was important was that these magic artifact swords were enough for Yi Chen to distribute. When the 9,991 magic artifact swords entered the cauldron of heaven and earth, the lid of the cauldron of heaven and earth was instantly closed. At this moment, the cauldron of heaven and earth shook violently. With a buzz sound, the cauldron of heaven and earth slowly rotated in midair. Time passed by slowly. When the cauldron of heaven and earth stopped rotating, the lid flew up instantly. Then, 9,991 long swords that emitted a strong pressure instantly flew out of the cauldron of heaven and earth. Then, the tips of the swords pointed upwards and soared into the sky. At the same time, an extremely strong killing intent appeared in an instant. Then, it raged in the sky, twisting the sea of clouds and churning endlessly. This change instantly attracted the attention of everyone in the Reincarnation Immortal City. When they saw that the change was coming from the City Lord's mansion, everyone in the Reincarnation Immortal City, regardless of whether they were commoners, soldiers, or Yi Chen's subordinates, without exception, revealed a smile. At this moment, everyone knew one thing. Their lord, the great Han Empire's general of agile cavalry, Yi Chen, had obtained another treasure. That's right, it was a treasure. Even ordinary commoners knew that these swords were extraordinary after seeing the 9,991 long swords with soaring sword intent in the sky. In the back residence of the City Lord's mansion, Yi Chen looked at the 9,991 long swords that were wantonly releasing sword intent in the sky, announcing to the world that they had been reborn. The corners of his mouth curled up involuntarily. The cauldron of heaven and earth was indeed the cauldron of heaven and earth. It directly upgraded magic artifacts to magic artifacts without paying anything. Chapter 679. Thinking of this, Yi Chen waved his right hand, and 9,991 magic treasure-level long swords instantly flew down and arrived in front of Yi Chen. Glancing at the 9,991 magic treasure-level long swords, Yi Chen's divine sense moved and immediately probed them. When Yi Chen checked all the magic treasures, his eyes suddenly widened. They were all top-grade magic treasures. Equipment had grades starting from magic treasures, and each grade was divided into top grade, high grade, middle grade, and low grade. Among them, top grade was the strongest and low grade was the weakest. Now, after being refined by the cauldron of heaven and earth, not only did the magic treasure level long swords advance to magic treasures, but they were also top-grade magic treasures. This was really beyond Yi Chen's expectations. Those magic treasures were all low-grade magic treasures. He didn't expect that after being refined by the cauldron of heaven and earth, all of them would be upgraded to top-grade magic treasures. This ability was really a bit abnormal, however. No matter how abnormal it wasn't as abnormal as transforming acquired to innate. Thinking of this, Yi Chen couldn't help but raise his eyebrows. Then, he flicked his fingers, and 10 magic treasure-level long swords instantly flew to the women, and then stopped in front of them. Zhao Yu, Chan Wan, Kai Mei Mizhen, Huang Wan'er and Jin Jusei saw this and smiled together, and then shouted in unison, "Thank you, husband." When Yi Chen heard this, he nodded with a smile and said, "That's right. These are all magic treasures. After dripping blood to recognize them as masters, they can be stored in your sea of consciousness. You can use them for the time being, and when there are better weapons in the future, I will replace them for you." Okay. Hearing this, the women responded sweetly. After speaking, they each forced out a drop of blood essence and dripped it on the magic treasures. In just an instant, the 10 magic treasures were stored in the women's sea of consciousness. In the next second, the women waved their right hands, and top-grade magic treasure-level long swords instantly appeared in their hands. The women glanced at each other and smiled in unison. Then, one by one, they withdrew their magic treasures and released them. They were having a lot of fun. When Yi Chen saw this, he couldn't help but be stunned. After regaining his senses, Yi Chen helplessly shook his head and stood up. "This world has great restrictions on you, so you won't be able to break through to the mortal evolution state in this world. If you want to break through to the mortal evolution state, then come to my world. Although there is still more than a day before the world I am in becomes very dangerous, Yi Lin has already broken through to the Purple Mansion realm. As long as you stay in Samsara City, you will not be in danger. But remember, you are not allowed to go out unless I return to my world." The Heaven Dao of the Three Kingdoms Novice region didn't allow natives to ascend, so natives couldn't break through to the mortal evolution state in the Three Kingdoms Novice region. Even the 3 mortal evolution states, Zhua Ci, Yu Ji, and Nan Hua Old Immortal, weren't able to ascend to the immortal realm, let alone increase their cultivation level. Otherwise, Yi Chen wouldn't have said this to the women. When the women heard Yi Chen's solemn words, their hearts felt warm. They looked at Yi Chen and nodded seriously. "Yes, husband." When Yi Chen heard this, he nodded his head in satisfaction. At this moment, a maid walked over and bowed to Yi Chen, saying, "Brother Yi, I'm sorry. You of Beech, Lord Beech, the generals, and the military counselor have all arrived at the hall." When Yi Chen heard this, he nodded and looked at the women. "I will stay at home for the next 2 days. Ask the kitchen to prepare some dishes. We will gather at night." "Yes, husband." When the women heard this, their eyes lit up, and they shouted excitedly in unison. Yi Chen hadn't been back for a long time. The women naturally hoped that Yi Chen would come back and spend more time with them. No matter how reasonable the women were, they couldn't get rid of this thought. As for the reason, it was very simple. They were all women, and they were Yi Chen's women. Now Yi Chen suddenly said that he would stay at home for 2 days. How could the women not be excited? Yi Chen sighed inwardly when he saw the girls' excited gazes. Then, he turned around and walked towards the front of the house. Yi Chen knew what the women were thinking, and he was very apologetic. However, Yi Chen had no choice because Yi Chen had a lot of things to do. The only thing he could do was to squeeze out time. This was Yi Chen's helplessness. Even though Yi Chen was standing at the top of the players, he couldn't avoid it. After all, Yi Chen's current strength was only temporary. If he wanted to be truly powerful, Yi Chen still had a long way to go. Therefore, Yi Chen's footsteps couldn't stop at all. Yi Chen could only continue forward until he had the strength to make all living things despair, to make all living things tremble in fear. Only then would he truly stop. This was because at that time, Yi Chen had already become the strongest emperor. Reincarnation, Immortal City, City Lord Mansion, Front House Hall. As soon as Yi Chen entered, Zhao Yun, Dian Xiong, Guo Yi, Kai Yin, Guan Er, Zhang San, Zhang He, Gao Shun, and the others all stood up and bowed to Yi Chen. "Greetings, Lord." Hearing this, Yi Chen nodded and walked straight into the hall. After sitting down on the main seat, he waved his hand and gestured for the others to sit down. After his subordinates sat down one after another, Yi Chen glanced at them and said, "Let's go. There's only one thing for me to do." Hearing Yi Chen's words, Zhao Yun, Dian Xiong, Guo Yi, and the others all turned serious. When Yi Chen saw this, he smiled slightly and continued. "Just now, I obtained some opportunities and can impart my cultivation technique. Therefore, I summoned all of you here to ask if you're willing to learn my cultivation technique." Hearing Yi Chen's words, Zhao Yun, Dian Xiong, Guan Er, Zhang San, Guo Yi, and the others were all stunned. They didn't expect Yi Chen to summon them here for this. If someone asked them if Yi Chen's cultivation technique was strong, these subordinates of Yi Chen would give the person a big slap, without hesitation. Flying in the sky, burrowing into the earth, summoning the wind and summoning the rain, filling the sky with a sea of fire, and summoning 10,000 lightning bolts with a wave of his hand. If that wasn't strong, then what was strong? Originally, they didn't want to learn Yi Chen's cultivation technique. After all, it belonged to their lord. No matter how bold they were, they wouldn't dare to ask Yi Chen about it. And now, what did they hear? Their lord, Yi Chen, was actually asking them if they wanted to learn their lord's cultivation technique. How could they not be shocked by this? While Yi Chen's subordinates were indescribably shocked by Yi Chen's words, Guo Yi, who was sitting at the head of the civil officials, was the first to recover from his shock. He stood up and walked to the center of the hall and solemnly knelt before Yi Chen. "Disciples Guo Yi and Guo Fengshao greet Master." Hearing Guo Yi's words, Zhao Yun, Dian Xiong, Zhao Meng, Guan Er, and Zhang San all recovered from their shock. At this moment, Guo Yi spoke again. "Master, this disciple is the first to acknowledge a master. It should be eldest senior brother." Yi Chen was originally happy that Guo Yi had immediately acknowledged him as his master. After all, the relationship between master and disciple was much closer than that between subordinate. This was much better than directly imparting a cultivation technique and not accepting a disciple. But who would have thought that Guo Yi's words would expose his intentions? Fuck, he's aiming for the position of eldest senior brother. Thinking of this, Yi Chen's face darkened. He glared at Guo Yi and said, "Yes. Approved. Thank you, master." Guo Yi chuckled when he heard this, then solemnly bowed again. At this moment there was a loud bang. Zhao Yun, who was the most agile, was the second to step forward and kneel on the ground. Following him were Dian Xiong, Guan Er, and Zhang San. In the next second, Zhao Yun, Dian Xiong, Guan Er, Zhang San, Gao Shun, and Zhang Liao all bowed in unison. "Greetings, master." Yi Chen looked at his subordinates who were kneeling in the hall. He knew that once he nodded, these subordinates would become his disciples. In this way, whether it was the reincarnation Immortal City or the reincarnation Empire in the future, it would be more stable and stronger. Logically speaking, this should be something to be happy about, but Yi Chen couldn't bring himself to feel happy at the moment. The reason was very simple. Fuck, his father-in-law, Kai Yin, his brother-in-law, Zhao Yun, and his other brother-in-law, Mi Zhu, had all formally acknowledged him as their master. At this moment, Yi Chen regretted letting Kai Yin, Zhao Yun, and Mi Zhu come over. Guo Yi, who was kneeling at the front, looked up when he saw that Yi Chen didn't speak for a long time. When Guo Yi saw the conflicted expression on Yi Chen's face, he couldn't help but smile. He then said, "Master, I think that imparting a cultivation technique is a master-disciple relationship. This has nothing to do with the matriarchs. Please understand, Master. Chapter 680. When Yi Chen heard this, he couldn't help but be taken aback. That's right. Master and disciple, so be it. What's there to be conflicted about? Thinking of this, Yi Chen immediately snapped out of his daze. He then looked at his subordinates and said, Feng Shao is right. Today, I will teach you cultivation technique. Although I am your master, you only need to remember it in your hearts. In the future, you will still call me Lord. Yes, Lord. When Zhao Yun, Guo Yi, Dian Xiong, Guan Er, Zhang San, Gao Shun, and the others heard this, they all bowed in unison. When Yi Chen heard this, he nodded and said, I have 2 cultivation techniques. The first one is the Green Lotus Sword technique. This cultivation technique is of the chaos level. When cultivated to the extreme, you can sever 3 corpses to prove your Tao and become a sage. The second one is the Chaos Talisman. This cultivation technique is also of the chaos level. When cultivated to the extreme, you can sever 3 corpses to prove your Tao and become a sage. Which one do you want to learn? Or do you want to learn both? When Yi Chen finished speaking, Zhao Yun, Dian Xiong, Guo Yi, Guan Er, Zhang San, Zhang Liao, Gao Shun, Su Chu, and the others were all stunned. In fact, they couldn't help but be stunned. They didn't know what a chaos-level cultivation technique was. They had never even heard of the Green Lotus Sword technique or the Chaos Talisman. However, not knowing didn't mean that they were stupid. To be more precise, they all knew what it meant to become a sage. All this time, they had only heard of the legends of sages. They never thought that one day, they would obtain the opportunity to become a sage. And now their lord, Yi Chen, told them one thing. Becoming a sage wasn't some illusory fantasy. As long as they learned either of the 2 cultivation techniques, they would have a chance to become a sage. Regardless of whether it was Zhao Yunjing, Dian Xiong, Guo Yi, or the others, this stimulation was too great. It was so great that they were stunned for a long time, and even thought that they were dreaming. Yi Chen looked at his subordinates who were stunned for a while and couldn't help but raise his eyebrows. Zhao Yu, Chan Wan, and Kai Mei didn't know what it meant to become a saint, but their subordinates seemed to know. Thinking of this, Yi Chen coughed a few times, which instantly made his subordinates come back to their senses. At this moment, Zhao Yun, Dian Xiong, Guo Yi, Guan Er, Zhang San, Kai Yin, Mi Zhu, Gao Shun, Su Chu, Zhang Liao, and the others all looked at Yi Chen. They raised their hands, raised 3 fingers, and solemnly shouted, We pledge our lives to follow my Lord. We swear that no matter how strong we are, even if we become saints, we will still be loyal to the Lord. Together in life and death, they would never betray each other. If you violate this oath, your body and soul will vanish, and you will be punished by the heavens and earth. Zhao Yun, Dian Xiong, Guo Yi, Guan Er, Zhang San, Kai Yin, Mi Zhen, and the others didn't think that Yi Chen was lying or tricking them because there was no need to. It was precisely because they knew that Yi Chen wouldn't lie to them that a wave of scorching warmth rose in their hearts after they came back to their senses. After that, they didn't hesitate to swear an oath to follow Yi Chen to the death. They had already made a vow before. Now they were roaring out a new vow because they didn't know how to express it. At this moment, they were extremely touched in the depths of their hearts. Yes, they were touched. Yi Chen's subordinates' hearts were filled with gratitude at this moment. As for the reason, it was very simple. Their master, Yi Chen, had given them an opportunity so great that all living beings would be envious of them. Attaining the Tao and becoming a saint was not something that immortal weapons, godly weapons, or connate spiritual treasures could compare to. Even if the probability was very small, so small that it was very likely that they wouldn't succeed, the opportunity was already in front of them. As long as they grasped it, it wasn't impossible for them to succeed. And if they succeeded, it would mean that they would become the supreme saints of the world. Was there anything that could drive people crazier than this? The answer was no, there wasn't. At least in the hearts of Zhao Yun, Guan Er, Zhang San, Guo Yi, and the others, it didn't exist. It was also because of this that Zhao Yun, Guan Er, Zhang San, Guo Yi, Kai Yin, Mi Zhu, Su Chu, Gao Shun, and the others roared out an oath that would shock any almighty. After all, to all the mighty figures, it was too King ridiculous for someone to swear to follow Yi Chen to the death after becoming a sage. Becoming a saint and still being a follower, what was this if not nonsense? But this was what Zhao Yun, Dian Xiong, Guo Yi, and the others were thinking, and they were firm and unwavering. As soon as Zhao Yun, Guan Er, Zhang San, and Guo Yi finished their oaths, thunder rumbled and lightning flashed wildly in the sky above Reincarnation Immortal City. Kaboom! When Yi Chen heard this, he glanced at the changing sky outside the hall and raised an eyebrow. It seems that my subordinates will achieve great things in the future. It wasn't Yi Chen's fault for thinking so. After all, heaven and earth didn't respond casually. And now Zhao Yun, Guo Yi, Guan Er, Zhang San, Gao Shun, Zhao Meng, and Zhang Liao's oaths had attracted heaven and earth's response, which meant that the contents of their oaths might come true. To be more precise, Zhao Yunjing, Guo Yi, Guan Er, Zhang San, and the others, even if they could not prove their Tao and become saints, they would still go very far on this path. Otherwise, heaven and earth wouldn't respond to their oaths. And this was the main reason why Yi Chen was so happy. Even without my help, these subordinates would still be able to go very far. If they had my help as well. Thinking of this, Yi Chen couldn't help but smile. He then looked at his subordinates and shouted, "Those who choose the Green Lotus Sword technique, stand on the left. Those who choose the Chaos Talisman, stand on the right. Those who choose both, stand in the middle." As soon as Yi Chen finished his words, Zhao Yun, Dian Xiong, Guan Er, and the other generals stood on the left, while Guo Yi, Kai Yin, Chen Kun, Sun Qing, and the other civil officials stood on the right. Seeing this, Yi Chen smiled, then raised his right hand and pointed at the void. In the next second, dozens of streams of information instantly flew out and directly rushed into the heads of Zhao Yunjing, Dian Xiong, Guo Yi, and the others, entering in a flash. At the same time, Yi Chen drew talismans in the void with his left hand. Several sealing talismans appeared in an instant and imprinted on the civil official's forehead. Yi Chen did this to seal most of the information of the Chaos Talisman. After all, the content of the Chaos Talisman was too large. If he didn't seal it, there was a 99% chance that these subordinates would be killed. Yi Chen didn't want to see this happen. As Yi Chen stopped, the generals and civil officials who had obtained the Chaos Talisman closed their eyes at the same time and began to comprehend the content of the Chaos Talisman. However, before long, Zhao Yun, Dian Xiong, Gao Shun, Guo Yi, and the others all frowned involuntarily. Yi Chen couldn't help smiling when he saw this. Then, with a thought, the connate supreme treasure cauldron of heaven and earth appeared in front of him. In the next second, Yi Chen's right hand reached into the void and a stream of creation energy flew out of the cauldron of heaven and earth. Then, Yi Chen slapped it toward his subordinate. When the creation energy rushed to Zhao Yun, Dian Xiong, Guo Yi, and the others, it was instantly absorbed by them. At this moment, everyone who had been frowning in contemplation was stunned and immediately entered a state of epiphany. Yi Chen nodded in satisfaction when he saw this. Time passed little by little. Zhao Yun, Guan Er, Zhang San, Dian Xiong, and the other saint-level generals, who were still in the state of epiphany, simultaneously emitted a powerful aura. It rose again and again until it reached the great circle of the saint-level generals before stopping. On the other hand, Gao Shun, Zhang Liao, and the other generals who hadn't reached the saint level yet emitted an aura of advancement. At the same time, their aura also rose again and again until it reached the great circle of the saint-level generals before stopping. On the other hand, Guo Yi, Sun Qing, Kai In, Chen Kun, and the other civil officials were different from the generals in that they emitted a spiritual pressure. Moreover, it was a spiritual pressure that rose all the way until it couldn't continue growing. When Yi Chen saw this, he couldn't help but be stunned. Damn, he should have let Guo Yi and the others go to the real world to receive the cultivation method and creation energy. That way, they could directly advance to the mortal evolution state. Yi Chen didn't want the generals to break through to the mortal evolution state in the novice region of the Three Kingdoms, but he didn't want to stop the civil officials from breaking through. After all, the generals had to go to the battlefield to kill the enemy. If they broke through to the mortal evolution state, they would be sealed. The loss wouldn't be worth it. On the other hand, the civil officials were responsible for strategizing and planning. They didn't need to go to the battlefield to kill the enemy at all. Therefore, it didn't matter even if they were sealed after breaking through to the mortal evolution state. Yi Chen thought to himself in annoyance. Then, he looked at his subordinates' attribute panels. When Yi Chen saw that his subordinates' bone frames had all become 2-star immortal spirit bodies, he couldn't help but be stunned. They actually skipped the 1-star immortal spirit body and became a 2-star immortal spirit body. That's right, Zhao Yu, Chan Wan, Kai Meier, and the others were 6 stars before they advanced to 7 stars. Not bad, not bad, the creation energy was inexhaustible. The more they improved, the better. Thinking about this, the corners of Yi Chen's mouth couldn't help but curl up. At this moment, sword qi suddenly filled the hall of the city lord estate, and runes flashed wildly. Zhao Yun, Guo Yi, Dian Xiong, and the others were either surrounded by sword qi or runes. It was very lively. When he saw this, Yi Chen nodded his head in satisfaction. At this moment, Zhao Yunjing, Guo Yi, Dian Xiong, and the others opened their eyes in unison. After that, they looked at Yi Chen in unison and bowed loudly. "Thank you, Lord, for your gift." Hearing this, Yi Chen chuckled and nodded. Then, he waved his right hand, and tens of magic artifact swords appeared instantly. Then, Yi Chen tossed them to his subordinate. When Zhao Yun, Dian Xiong, Guo Yi, and the others caught the swords one after another, everyone was stunned. Then, they all widened their eyes. They had never seen a magic artifact before, but they could clearly feel the extremely domineering pressure emitted by the magic artifact. Just when his subordinates were in a daze, Yi Chen chuckled and said, "You'll need to make a blood oath. 2 days later, the underground palace secret realm will open. With the magic artifact protecting you, you'll be safer." "Thank you, Lord, for your gift." When Zhao Yun, Dian Xiong, Guo Yi, and the others heard this, they looked at each other and bowed solemnly to Yi Chen again. Chapter 681. Yi Chen chuckled and nodded. He waved his right hand and a small mountain of 2 world stones appeared in the courtyard outside the hall. Yi Chen glanced at the mountainous pile of 2 world stones in the courtyard before he looked at Guo Yi. "Feng Shao, give each of the soldiers who haven't used the 2 world stone one. After they use the 2 world stone, bring them to my world and bring them back." In the real world, the safety city's protective shield would disappear in a little more than a day. The number of soldiers that Yi Chen could bring back to the real world added up to only 20,000. These soldiers were enough to deal with the dangers that might arise after the protective shield in the real world disappeared. However, as time passed, the players' realms would rise faster and faster. If Yi Chen didn't prepare enough soldiers, Yi Chen would definitely go offline if the shifter race or human race attacked. How could Yi Chen play the game in peace? Yi Chen didn't want such a situation to happen. Therefore, Yi Chen took out 3 million 2 world stones from the trash auction. Guo Yi hurriedly bowed after hearing Yi Chen's words. "Yes, my lord." Hearing this, Yi Chen nodded his head, then stood up and walked out. Zhao Yun, Dian Xiong, Guo Yi, Guan Er, Zhang San, and the others hurriedly bowed to Yi Chen. "Safe journey, my lord." Hearing this, Yi Chen smiled slightly. Then, he walked out of the door and headed to the back of the house. Soon, he arrived at the back of the house. Zhao Yu, Chan Wan, Kai Mei Mi Zhen, Huang Wan'er, and the 5 Zhen sisters smiled happily when they saw Yi Chen return. They called out sweetly to Yi Chen, "My husband!" Yi Chen's heart warmed when he heard the girls' heartfelt greetings. He strode towards them. Yi Chen came to the front of the girls and hugged them one by one. After hugging Zhenju, Yi Chen looked at the girls and said apologetically, "I'm sorry for all of you." When the girls heard Yi Chen's apologetic words, they were all stunned, and then their eyes involuntarily turned red. At this moment, a feeling of satisfaction and gratitude appeared in the hearts of the girls. To the girls, Yi Chen's words were more sincere than thousands of words of love. They also comforted their longing for Yi Chen. Looking at the girls' reddened eyes, Yi Chen sighed. When Yi Chen was about to speak, Zhao Yu wiped the corners of her eyes, then looked at Yi Chen and said, "My husband, we don't feel wronged. We are already the luckiest and happiest women in the world to be your wife. How can we feel wronged? Husband, my sisters and I are very touched because you have us in your heart. Moreover, you are sincere. I can feel it." When Chan Wan heard that, she nodded heavily, then said, Kai Mei, Huang Wan'er, and Zhenju wiped the tears from the corners of their eyes at this time, and then nodded seriously. They also felt the same. Yi Chen's heart warmed again when he heard this. A feeling of having such a wife, what more can a husband ask for? Involuntarily welled up in his heart. After a short sigh, Yi Chen looked at the girls and said, "The time limit of a lifetime cannot be stopped. The 100-year limit can no longer restrict us. Our future is eternal life. When that day really comes, as long as you don't despise this old man, I will accompany you to travel the mountains and rivers of the myriad worlds and give birth to hundreds and thousands of babies." As soon as Yi Chen's words fell, the girls were stunned. When the girls came back to their senses, their faces turned red at the same time, and then they looked at Yi Chen and said, "My husband will never dislike you. As long as my husband likes it, we are willing to give birth to it." When the girls said this, they involuntarily stopped, and then turned their heads shyly, not daring to continue looking at Yi Chen. Although they were already Yi Chen's women, the only ones who had slept with Yi Chen were Zhao Yu, Kai Mei, Chan Wan, and Mi Zhen. The other 6 had not consummated their marriage with Yi Chen until now, so naturally, they were too embarrassed to say having children. Even if Zhao Yu, Chan Wan, Kai Mei, and Mi Zhen had consummated their marriage with Yi Chen, they were too embarrassed to say it. After all, it had only been a short time for them to change from young girls to young women. Seeing this, Yi Chen laughed and said, "Prepare dinner. Prepare dinner. Your husband is hungry." "Yes, husband." Zhao Yu, Chan Wan, Kai Mei, Mi Zhen, Huang Wan'er, and Zhenju heard Yi Chen's laughter, and their faces turned red again, and then they replied in unison. Not long after, the food was served by the maids. After Yi Chen and the girls finished eating, they went directly to Huang Wan'er's room. After taking Huang Wan'er in, he could not consummate his marriage because he had to go to war. Now that he had 2 rare days of free time, Yi Chen naturally would not continue to eat. Of course, Yi Chen did not leave the 5 Zhen sisters behind. After one night, Yi Chen was the groom for 6 times. On the second night, Yi Chen simply pulled all the girls together and slept together under the big quilt. There was no other way. 2 days was not enough time. Yi Chen did not want to only accompany 1 or 2 of the girls and neglect the rest. On the morning of the 3rd day, Yi Chen got up with the help of the girls. After eating breakfast with the girls, Yi Chen went straight to the drill ground. Today was the day that Yi Chen set to open the secret realm of the underground palace. Naturally, Yi Chen would not postpone the established plan because of the pleasure of the girls. After all, Yi Chen wanted to be the strongest emperor and the strongest player. Indulging in the pleasure of the girls was not something that a qualified emperor should do. The drill ground of the reincarnation immortal city. Banners fluttered in the wind, and long spears were like a forest. Zhao Yun, Zhao Meng, Guai, Guaner, Zhang San, Kai Yin, Mi Zhu, Chen Kun, Sun Qing, Gao Shun, Zhang Liao, Su Chu, and other civil and military officials were already waiting here. Behind them were 100,000 white horses and 500,000 Samsara legion. After arriving at the drill ground, Yi Chen went straight to the high platform and then looked down at the densely packed soldiers of the reincarnation immortal city. Swoosh! 610,000 soldiers knelt down on one knee in unison. "Greetings, my lord!" 610,000 soldiers shouted in unison, and their voices shook the sky. Majestic, austere, and iron-blooded auras instantly rose from the soldiers. When Yi Chen heard this, he nodded his head and shouted, "Are you confident in attacking the secret realm of the underground palace today? Kill! Kill! Kill!" 610,000 soldiers raised their spears and shouted loudly. Fierce fighting spirit burst out in an instant and then soared into the sky. Feeling the strong fighting spirit of the soldiers, Yi Chen nodded with satisfaction. Then he looked at Mi Zhu and asked, "Zizhong, have the heaven-grade equipment been completed?" "My lord, all the heaven-grade equipment have been completed. Now we are just waiting for your order. The soldiers of the reincarnation immortal city can change it." Hearing this, Mi Zhu hurriedly stepped forward, then he bowed and cupped his fists. Chapter 682. When Yi Chen heard this, he nodded his head and shouted, "Bring them here." "Yes, my lord." When Mi Zhu heard this, he hurriedly bowed and left in a hurry. Not long after, he brought over 610,000 sets of heaven-grade equipment. Looking at the neat rows of heaven-grade equipment for soldiers, Yi Chen used his mind, and the ancient yet mysterious innate ultimate treasure cauldron of heaven and earth appeared in the sky above the drill ground. In the next second, Yi Chen raised his right hand and made a grabbing motion in the air. The 610,000 heaven-tier armor sets that were piled up like a mountain in the drill ground instantly flew up and charged towards the cauldron of heaven and earth floating above the drill ground. At the same time, the lid of the cauldron of heaven and earth flew up with a bang and left the cauldron of heaven and earth. At this moment, the 610,000 sets of heaven-grade equipment came to the cauldron of heaven and earth and flew into the cauldron of heaven and earth. When the 610,000 sets of heaven-grade equipment flew into the cauldron of heaven and earth, the lid of the cauldron of heaven and earth was instantly closed. At this moment, the cauldron of heaven and earth shook violently. With a buzzing sound, the cauldron of heaven and earth began to rotate slowly in the air. In the drill ground, the soldiers looked at the rotating cauldron of heaven and earth floating in the air with their eyes wide open, afraid that they would miss something. Although they did not understand why their lord, Yi Chen, would put the 610,000 sets of equipment into the cauldron, which was obviously an immortal treasure, they were clear about one thing. That was, their lord, Yi Chen, was unparalleled in the world, omnipotent, and would never do meaningless things. It was for this reason that they were staring with their eyes wide open, afraid that they would miss something wonderful. Time passed slowly. When the cauldron of heaven and earth stopped rotating, the lid flew up and 610,000 sets of equipment for soldiers exuding a tyrannical aura flew out of the cauldron of heaven and earth one after another and hovered above the soldiers' heads. At this moment, the aura of weapons in the drill ground suddenly became extremely strong and then directly shook. Yi Chen glanced at the 610,000 sets of spirit-grade armor hovering above the soldiers' heads. With a thought, he sent out his divine sense. When Yi Chen finished inspecting all 610,000 sets of spirit-grade equipment, he nodded with satisfaction. Not bad, they are all supreme-grade spirit weapons." While Yi Chen was satisfied, the soldiers in the drill ground all widened their eyes. They could feel the pressure coming from the equipment. Even though many of them were saint-level martial generals, they still couldn't ignore that pressure. At this moment, no matter how confused the soldiers were, they understood one thing. That was, the equipment that was supposed to be distributed to them was now different. To be more precise, the grade of the equipment was even higher. Otherwise, it wouldn't have been able to give them such a strong sense of oppression. As for what the higher-level equipment was, the soldiers didn't know. However, they knew that the equipment floating above their heads was definitely an existence that transcended the mortal world. After coming back to their senses, the soldiers looked at each other and then at Yi Chen in unison. At this moment, a feeling of pride, gratitude, and worship instantly appeared in the hearts of all the soldiers. They were proud to be Yi Chen's soldiers and proud to be able to follow Yi Chen. They were grateful for Yi Chen's love for his soldiers as if they were his children, and worshipped Yi Chen's strength and omnipotence. Yi Chen glanced at the 610,000 soldiers below the stage, who all had the same look in their eyes. He smiled slightly and then shouted, "Let's go. Take off your armor." When the 610,000 soldiers heard this, no one said anything. They all took off their equipment and piled it neatly beside them. When Yi Chen saw this, he shouted again, "Drip blood to bind them." As soon as Yi Chen finished speaking, the 610,000 sets of spirit-grade equipment for soldiers instantly appeared in front of the soldiers and quietly hovered there. As for the 610,000 soldiers, at this moment, all of them trembled. They were not afraid, but excited. Because their master, Yi Chen, had said, "Drip blood to bind them." This was enough to confirm their previous conjecture. These brand-new equipment that had been processed by the Immortal's cauldron really were equipment that transcended the mortal world. In the next second, the 610,000 soldiers all breathed a sigh of relief. Then, they bit their index fingers and dripped their blood onto the spirit-grade equipment hovering in front of them. After the time it took to drink a cup of tea, the drill ground exploded with red light. Then, the 610,000 sets of spirit-grade equipment disappeared. In the next second, the 610,000 sets of spirit-grade equipment that had just disappeared reappeared on the soldiers' bodies and hand. Bang! The 610,000 soldiers suddenly got down on one knee in unison. "We swear to follow our master to the death. We will never betray him for all eternity. If we break this oath, may the heavens and earth destroy us." The 610,000 soldiers roared, their voices shaking the heavens. Hearing this, Yi Chen chuckled and nodded. Then, with a thought, the 9 Cauldrons treasure map appeared in Yi Chen's right hand. Glancing at the 9 Cauldrons treasure map in his right hand, Yi Chen raised his eyebrows and chose to use it without hesitation. Ding! Player Yi Chen used the 9 Cauldrons treasure map and automatically obtained the key to the secret realm. The seal of the secret realm in the underground palace has been lifted. The location of the secret realm is at Mount Li. Ding! Player Yi Chen, please open the secret realm in the underground palace within 1 hour. Otherwise, the secret realm will be sealed forever. As soon as the system's notification ended, Yi Chen frowned. In his previous life, the location of the secret realm in the underground palace should have been in Xianyang. Now, it was at Mount Li. Mount Li was one of the places where the emperors of the past rested and played. Therefore, there would be many palace maids, eunuchs, and palace guards stationed at Mount Li. Otherwise, Yi Chen would not be frowning. Damn it. Fortunately, Great Han had just experienced the Golden Turban Rebellion and the Demon Race's invasion. There shouldn't be anyone there yet. Even if there is someone there, it doesn't matter. No matter who it is, don't even think about stopping me from opening the secret realm. At this thought, Yi Chen used his mind and 100 distorted spaces appeared in the drill ground. After glancing at the distorted spaces, Yi Chen looked at Zhao Yun, Dian Xiong, Guo Yi, Kai Yin, Guan Er, and the others. Move out. Yes, my lord. When Zhao Yun, Dian Xiong, Guo Yi, Kai Yin, Guan Er, and the others heard this, their expressions turned solemn. They then bowed and saluted loudly. In the next second, Zhao Yun, Dian Xiong, Guan Er, Zhang San, Gao Shun, Zhang Liao, Su Chu, Gan Ning, and the other generals were the first to walk into the distorted spaces and then disappeared from the drill ground. Guo Yi, Kai Yin, Chen Kun, Sun Qing, and the other civil officials followed closely behind and left the drill ground. Then came the 100,000 White Horse righteous followers and the 510,000 Samsara Legion soldiers. One after another, they walked through the distorted spaces and disappeared from the drill ground. Seeing this, Yi Chen smiled lightly. After that, he took a step forward and disappeared. Southwest of Chang and City, at the foot of Mount Li, Yi Chen stepped out of the distorted space and appeared here. When Zhao Yun, Dian Xiong, Guo Yi, and Gao Shun saw Yi Chen arrive, they all bowed and saluted. "Greetings, my lord." Yi Chen nodded upon hearing this. With a thought, his divine sense instantly enveloped the entire Mount Li. 10 minutes later, after Yi Chen confirmed that there were no eunuchs, palace maids, or palace guards around, he nodded in satisfaction. Then, he looked at the foot of Mount Li, at the cave that kept flickering with a dim light. The entrance to the secret dimension of the underground palace should be in this cave. Just as Yi Chen was about to go over, Zhao Yunjing, Dian Xiong, Guan Er and the other generals all took a step forward and bowed to Yi Chen. "This general is willing to open the secret dimension of the underground palace for my lord. Opening the secret dimension might be dangerous, or it might not be." Regardless of which possibility it was, Zhao Yun, Dian Xiong, and Guan Er did not want their lord, Yi Chen, to personally take the risk. Yi Chen faintly smiled and then said, "There's no need to worry." "There's no need for this." Before Yi Chen could finish, Zhao Yun, Dian Xiong, Guan Er, and Zhang San bowed once more. "We implore my lord's permission." When Yi Chen heard this, he inwardly sighed and waved his right hand. A palm-sized, finger-wide bronze key instantly appeared in his right hand. Yi Chen then tossed it to Zhao Yun. When Zhao Yun saw this, he hurriedly reached out and caught it. He then bowed to Yi Chen and strode toward the glowing cave at the foot of Mount Li. After 10 minutes, there was a creaking sound as a world announcement suddenly rang out. Ding! Congratulations to player Yi Chen for successfully opening the secret dimension of the underground palace. The secret dimension of the underground palace has officially been revealed. All players can now head to Mount Li and explore the secret dimension. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.